The night Ethan Rowe's phone buzzed with a dinner reminder, he had his finger hovering over the cancel button. One more pointless blind date with another woman who'd spend the evening calculating his net worth instead of actually talking to him. But 30 seconds later, when he walked into that restaurant and saw her sitting there, Lena Hart, the girl from his old neighborhood who never looked at him like a bank account, everything stopped. And he realized the biggest risk of his life wasn't building empires. It was almost missing the one person who'd been right there all along. If you want to see how a single dinner changed two broken lives forever, stay until the end. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hit Manhattan like it had a personal grudge that Friday evening, turning the streets into rivers of brake lights and impatience. Ethan Rowe sat in the back of his black Mercedes, watching water stream down the window, and seriously considered telling Marcus to just turn around. "Traffic's brutal tonight, Mr. Rowe," Marcus said from the driver's seat, his eyes catching Ethan's in the rearview mirror. "We could reschedule if you'd prefer." Ethan's phone sat heavy in his palm. One text to Daniel, his best friend and the architect of tonight's disaster, and he could be back home in 20 minutes. Back to the familiar silence of his penthouse. Back to checking on Sophie, his 6-year-old daughter, already asleep by now with her nanny reading in the next room. Back to the comfortable numbness that had become his life. "No," he heard himself say, though he wasn't sure why. "We're already halfway there." Marcus nodded and Ethan slumped deeper into the leather seat, exhausted before the evening had even started. 32 years old, and he felt ancient. 5 years since Caroline died, and the grief had settled into something worse, a hollow routine where days blurred together in an endless loop of conference rooms, quarterly reports, and bedtime stories read on autopilot. He'd stopped feeling most things a long time ago. Stopped hoping for them too. The blind dates had become a particular kind of torture. Daniel meant well, always did, but his matchmaking attempts over the past year had produced a parade of disasters. There was the venture capitalist who'd pitched him a startup idea before their appetizers arrived. The Instagram influencer who spent 40 minutes photographing her food and 0 minutes making eye contact. The divorce attorney who'd actually asked about his prenuptial arrangements during dessert. Each one saw the same thing. Ethan Rowe, CEO of Rowe Enterprises, estimated net worth north of $2 billion. Manhattan's most eligible widower, according to some ridiculous magazine article he'd never asked to be part of. None of them saw him, the man who still slept on one side of the bed, out of habit. Who sometimes forgot to eat lunch because work was easier than silence. Who'd give up half his fortune tomorrow if it meant Sophie could remember her mother's voice. "Almost there, sir," Marcus announced, pulling up to the curb outside Ember. The restaurant glowed warm against the wet darkness, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. The kind of place Daniel would pick because it was intimate but not presumptuous. Ethan had been here twice before for business dinners. He remembered nothing about the food. His phone buzzed. Daniel, of course. Her name is Sarah. Brunette. She'll be wearing a blue dress. And Ethan, actually try this time, please. Ethan typed back. "I'm here. Against my better judgment. You'll thank me later." He doubted that intensely. The hostess greeted him with the practiced smile of someone who recognized money when it walked through the door. "Mr. Rowe, your table is ready. Right this way." He followed her through the restaurant, already preparing his exit strategy. Stay for one drink, maybe two if she seemed genuinely kind. Make an excuse about Sophie, actually true for once since he did need to review her school applications this weekend. Keep it polite, brief, and unmemorable. The hostess gestured to a corner table. "Your guest should be arriving any—" The door chimed behind them. Ethan turned automatically, expecting to see a brunette in a blue dress, and instead his entire body went completely still. Walking through the entrance, shaking rain from a cheap umbrella that had clearly lost its fight with the wind, was Lena Hart. Lena. She hadn't seen him yet, too busy apologizing to the hostess for dripping water on the floor, her cheeks flushed from the cold, her dark hair escaping from a ponytail in damp curls. She wore a simple black dress, not blue, definitely not blue, that looked like it had come from a clearance rack, paired with flats that had seen better years. She looked nothing like the polished women Ethan usually met. She looked exactly like herself. And when she finally glanced up, her brown eyes went wide with the same shock currently freezing Ethan's brain. "Ethan?" His name came out barely above a whisper, but he heard it over the ambient noise of the restaurant, over his own pulse suddenly hammering in his ears. "Lena." He found his voice somewhere. "What are you doing here?" She stared at him, then at the hostess, then back at him, understanding dawning with visible horror. "Oh, no, 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 no. You're not… This isn't… your date?" Ethan finished, his own disbelief matching hers. "I think it is." "Oh my God!" Lena's hand flew to her mouth. Maya set this up. She said she knew someone who… She stopped, looking like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "This is so embarrassing." "Maya, Daniel's girlfriend. Of course." The hostess, confused but professional, gestured weakly toward the table. "Should I give you two a moment?" "Yes," Lena said immediately. "No," Ethan said at the same time, then surprised himself by adding, "We'll take the table. Thank you." Lena looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. But something about this situation, the sheer absurdity of it, the cosmic joke of being set up with someone he'd known for 20 years, had cracked through his exhaustion into something almost like amusement. "Ethan, we don't have to do this," Lena said quietly as the hostess retreated. "I know you're busy, and this is clearly a mistake, so we can just… Have you eaten?" he interrupted. "What?" "Dinner. Have you eaten yet?" She blinked at him. "No, but neither have I. We're both already here. We're both already soaked." He gestured at his rain-spotted suit jacket. "Might as well sit down. We can laugh about how our friends ambushed us, eat some overpriced pasta, and call it a night. 1 hour. Then we can both tell them we tried." Lena hesitated, clearly weighing her options, and Ethan could see the exact moment she made the decision. Her shoulders dropped slightly, tension replaced by resignation. 1 hour, she agreed. "But I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu since this was your friend's idea." The corner of his mouth lifted. "Deal." They sat down across from each other, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The table felt too small suddenly, too intimate for two people who'd spent years maintaining a careful distance of casual acquaintance. Ethan had known Lena since they were kids growing up in Queens, back before his father's tech company exploded and moved the family to Manhattan. She'd lived 3 blocks over, always quiet, always reading on her front steps while other kids played street hockey. He remembered her as the girl who'd lent him her notes when he missed a week of school with the flu in 8th grade, who'd worked at the corner store after school, who'd smiled at his stupid jokes even when nobody else did. They'd stayed loosely connected over the years, running into each other at the old neighborhood coffee shop when Ethan visited his aunt, exchanging occasional texts around holidays, meeting up maybe twice a year for coffee and catching up. But they'd never been close, not really. Their lives had diverged too sharply. His into privilege and pressure, hers into struggle and sacrifice. He knew the basics. She'd dropped out of college when her father died to help support her mother and younger brother. She worked 2 jobs now, something in retail and something else she'd mentioned once that he couldn't remember. She still lived in Queens, still visited the old neighborhood more than he did. But sitting across from her now, Ethan realized how little he actually knew about the woman Lena had become. "So," she said finally, picking up the menu like a shield, "on a scale of 1 to 10, how badly do you want to kill Daniel right now?" 11, Ethan answered without hesitation. "You?" "Maya's getting at least a strongly worded text." Lena scanned the menu and he watched a small smile tug at her lips. "Oh, wow. They have a $40 burger here. Order 3. She laughed, actually laughed, and something in Ethan's chest shifted. When was the last time he'd made someone laugh without trying? A waiter appeared, polite and efficient, and Lena ordered the burger with an apologetic smile. Ethan asked for something he didn't look at. His attention caught on the way Lena's fingers twisted the cloth napkin in her lap. Nervous. She was nervous. That made 2 of them. "I'm sorry about this," she said once the waiter left. "Maya's been on my case for months about getting out more. I should have known she'd pull something like this. Daniel's been doing the same thing. Apparently I've become a hermit." "Have you?" The question was gentle, genuinely curious, and Ethan found himself answering honestly. "Pretty much. Work, Sophie, sleep. That's about it." Lena's expression softened. "How is Sophie? She must be, 6 now? 6.5, according to her. Very important distinction." He pulled out his phone, found a recent photo, Sophie grinning gap-toothed at the camera, covered in paint from art class, and showed it to Lena. "Oh, Ethan." Lena's voice went soft. "She's beautiful. She has Caroline's eyes." She did. Everyone said so, and it never stopped hurting. "She's the only thing I haven't screwed up completely," he said, then immediately regretted the honesty. But Lena didn't look uncomfortable. She just nodded, like she understood exactly what he meant. "I doubt that's true," she said quietly. "But I get it. Some days you wake up and wonder how you're still standing, right? Like you're waiting for everything to fall apart, but it just doesn't. It just keeps going." Ethan stared at her. "Yeah, exactly like that." Their eyes met across the table, and for a second the restaurant noise faded into background static. There was something in her expression, recognition, maybe, or understanding, that made him feel less alone than he had in months. The moment broke when their wine arrived, and Lena immediately took a large sip. "Okay," she said, setting her glass down with more force than necessary. "New rule, no sad talk. We're supposed to be on a terrible blind date, so let's commit to the bit. Ask me something you'd ask a stranger." Ethan considered this. "What do you do for fun?" "Sleep." She grinned at his expression. "What? I work 60 hours a week between 2 jobs. Sleep is fun. Your turn. What do you do for fun?" "I don't remember." "That's depressing. You started it with sleep." "Fair point." Lena took another sip of wine, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "Okay, real answer. I read. A lot. Mostly fantasy novels where everyone has swords and magic, and their biggest problem is dragons, not rent. Escapism. Hardcore escapism," she corrected. "I'm currently 3 books into a 7-book series about a reluctant queen who can control shadows. Very impractical skill, but the author makes it work." Ethan found himself smiling. "That actually sounds interesting." "You're lying to be polite." "I'm really not. I used to read." Before... He trailed off, but Lena didn't make him finish. "Well, if you ever want recommendations, I have approximately 200 unread books in my apartment and a library card that's getting a serious workout." 200? She had the grace to look sheepish. "I have a problem, but there are worse addictions, so I'm living with it." The food arrived, and Lena's burger looked ridiculous, a tower of meat and toppings that would require architectural planning to eat. She stared at it, then at Ethan, and burst out laughing. "I'm going to need a strategy for this." "Knife and fork? That feels like cheating." He watched her attempt to pick it up, fail immediately, and resort to deconstructing it with her hands, and something about the unself-conscious way she did it, no pretense, no performance, made him realize how rare that was in his world. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "As long as it's not about my burger-eating technique." "Why'd you say yes to this? The blind date, I mean." Lena paused mid-bite, considering. "Honestly, Maya cornered me after a really long shift, and I was too tired to argue. She did this whole speech about how I never do anything for myself, and I deserve happiness. And she knows this great guy who's also looking to meet someone." She shrugged. "I figured one dinner couldn't hurt. What about you?" "Guilt," Ethan admitted. "Daniel's been trying for a year. I kept saying no, and he kept pushing. And eventually I just gave in, figured I'd do my time, let him say he tried, and then he'd drop it. So we're both here under duress." "Apparently." "That's kind of perfect, actually." Lena wiped her hands on her napkin. "Takes the pressure off. We can just be 2 people eating overpriced food and complaining about our well-meaning friends. I can work with that." And somehow, they did. The conversation flowed easier than it should have. Lena told him about her mother's ongoing health issues, diabetes, arthritis, a stubbornness that made doctor visits a negotiation, and how her younger brother Tommy had finally gotten into community college after years of screwing around. She talked about her jobs without complaint, just facts. Mornings at a boutique in Soho where rich women bought $1,000 handbags. Evenings doing data entry for a medical billing company because it paid better and let her work from home. She didn't mention the exhaustion that Ethan could see in the faint shadows under her eyes, or how she probably hadn't bought herself anything new in months, or the fact that she was eating a $40 burger at a restaurant she'd never normally set foot in because this was someone else's dime. She just talked about her life like it was what it was. No self-pity, no martyrdom, just reality, accepted and dealt with. In return, Ethan found himself talking more than he had in years. He told her about the impossible pressure of running a company his father had built, how every decision felt weighted with legacy and expectation, about Sophie's recent obsession with dinosaurs and how his apartment was now covered in plastic triceratops, about the crushing loneliness of wealth, which sounded stupid when he said it out loud, but Lena didn't laugh. "It's not stupid," she said quietly. "Money doesn't fix loneliness. It just makes it more comfortable." That's depressingly accurate. I have my moments of wisdom, usually around 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. You have trouble sleeping. My brain doesn't have an off switch. She traced the rim of her wine glass. I'll be exhausted, dead on my feet, and the second I lie down, my brain decides it's time to worry about everything at once. Bills, mom's medications, whether Tommy's actually going to class, did I lock the front door? She stopped, looking embarrassed. "Sorry, that's probably too real for a first date." "This isn't a real first date," Ethan reminded her. "Remember? We're just two people complaining." "Right. The duress dinner." "Exactly." She smiled at that, and Ethan noticed details he'd never paid attention to before. The way her nose crinkled slightly when she smiled, how she talked with her hands when she got animated, the fact that she'd ordered the expensive burger as a joke, but was now clearly trying to eat every bite so it wouldn't be wasted. She was pretty. He'd always known that objectively, but now he was actually seeing it. Not magazine pretty or red carpet pretty, just real, warm, present. And when she laughed at something he said about Sophie's teacher, a woman who sent him novels via email about 6-year-old social dynamics, he felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Interest. Actual, genuine interest in another person. It terrified him. "What time is it?" Lena asked suddenly. Ethan checked his watch. 9:30. "Shit. Really?" She looked genuinely surprised. "We've been here for almost 2 hours." 2 hours. Their agreed-upon 1 hour had come and gone without either of them noticing. "I should go," Lena said, but she didn't move. "I have to open the boutique at 7 tomorrow, and the subway ride back to Queens is going to take forever in this rain." "Let Marcus drive you." "Marcus?" "My driver. He's parked outside." Lena's expression shifted immediately, walls going up, distance inserting itself between them. "I don't need a ride, Ethan. I'm fine." "I know you're fine, but it's pouring, and you're going to Queens, and I have a car sitting there doing nothing." "That's nice of you, but—" "Lena." He kept his voice gentle. "It's just a ride. Not a statement or a favor or anything weird. Just one person offering another person a dry way home on a shitty night." She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her weighing it, pride against practicality, independence against exhaustion. "Okay," she said finally. "Thank you." They split the check despite Ethan's protests, and Lena insisted on leaving the tip, counting out cash with the careful precision of someone who knew exactly how much money they had. When they walked outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, and Marcus already had the car pulled up. "Ms. Hart, pleasure to meet you," Marcus said with a slight nod. "Lena, please, and thank you for this." The ride to Queens started in silence. Ethan sat on one side of the back seat, Lena on the other, a careful distance maintained. Through the window, Manhattan gave way to the bridge, then to streets that became progressively less polished, buildings shorter and closer together. "I forgot how different it looks over here," Ethan said quietly. "Different than Manhattan, you mean?" "Yeah. Most people from your world don't come to Queens unless they're lost." There was no accusation in her voice, just observation, but it stung anyway because it was true. "I used to live here," he reminded her. "A long time ago." She turned to look at him. "You're not that kid anymore, Ethan, and that's okay. People change. Lives change." "Do you ever resent it?" The question came out before he could stop it. "That things turned out so differently for us?" Lena was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes," she admitted, "not because of what you have, but because of what I don't. There's a difference. I don't begrudge you your success, Ethan, but yeah, some nights when I'm doing data entry until midnight and my mom's medical bills are piling up, and I can't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to, yeah, I resent it. The unfairness of it all." Her honesty hit him square in the chest. No platitudes. No pretending struggle built character or hardship was a gift. Just truth, raw and unvarnished. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "I don't know. That life's unfair, that you're carrying so much." "That's not your fault." "I know, but I'm still sorry." She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, surprised maybe, or touched. "You're different than I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more untouchable, I guess. The Ethan Rowe from the Forbes articles and charity galas. But you're just—" She trailed off. "Just what?" "Tired," she finished softly. "Like me." The car pulled up to a modest apartment building, paint peeling around the windows, a broken security light flickering near the entrance. Lena gathered her things, her drowned umbrella, the purse she'd been clutching all night. "Thank you for dinner," she said, "and for not making this completely horrible." "Same to you." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "Ethan, can I say something that might be weird?" "Go ahead." "Tonight was the first time in months I didn't feel completely alone." She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "So thank you for that, even if it was an accident." Before he could respond, she was out of the car, hurrying through the drizzle toward her building. He watched until she disappeared inside, then sat back against the leather seat, his mind racing. "Home, Mr. Rowe?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, home." But as they drove back toward Manhattan, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about what Lena had said, about loneliness and accidents, and the strange comfort of talking to someone who understood without needing explanation. His phone buzzed. "Daniel. Well, how'd it go?" Ethan stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "It was good. Really good." 3 dots appeared, then, "Told you. Same time next week?" And Ethan, who had sworn off blind dates permanently, who had been ready to cancel tonight, who had spent 5 years convinced he'd never feel anything again, typed something that surprised even him. "Yeah, I think I'd like that." He sent the message before he could change his mind, then looked out at the city lights blurring past, rain-slicked and beautiful, and wondered what the hell he was doing. The answer came quietly, unbidden, hoping. For the first time in 5 years, Ethan Rowe was hoping for something, and it scared him more than any business deal ever had. When he got home, Sophie was asleep, her nightlight casting dinosaur shadows on the walls. He stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe, and thought about the woman who'd asked how she was doing with genuine care in her voice. The woman who understood exhaustion and loneliness and carrying weight no one else could see. The woman who'd been right there in his old neighborhood all along, and he'd never really seen her until tonight. His phone buzzed again. Not Daniel this time. An unknown number, then a text. "It's Lena. Maya gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to say thanks again for tonight. And for the ride. Sleep well." Ethan saved her number, then typed back. "Sleep well, Lena. And next time, dinner's on me. No duress required." 3 dots. A pause. Then, "I'll hold you to that." He smiled at his phone like an idiot, alone in his daughter's doorway at nearly midnight, and didn't even care. Outside, rain continued to fall on Manhattan, washing the streets clean, and Ethan Rowe went to bed that night thinking about brown eyes and honest laughter and the strange mercy of almost canceled plans. Tomorrow, he'd wake up to the same pressures, the same emptiness, the same grinding routine. But tonight, for the first time in years, he fell asleep actually looking forward to tomorrow. Because tomorrow meant he could text her again. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The next morning, Ethan woke up before his alarm and immediately checked his phone like a teenager. No new messages from Lena. He told himself he wasn't disappointed, then got out of bed and started his day pretending the night before hadn't changed anything. By noon, he'd failed spectacularly at that pretense. "You're distracted," his CFO Robert said during their quarterly review meeting, pulling Ethan's attention back to the conference room where 6 executives sat waiting for his input on third-quarter projections. "I'm listening." "Then what did I just say about the Singapore expansion?" Ethan had no idea. He'd been staring at the spreadsheet on the screen while thinking about the way Lena had laughed when her burger fell apart. "Can we table this until Monday?" he said abruptly. "I need to review the numbers again." Robert raised an eyebrow. Ethan never tabled meetings, but nodded. "Sure, Monday works." The room cleared and Ethan sat alone with his phone, arguing with himself. He could text her. He should text her. He absolutely should not text her because it had been less than 12 hours and he didn't want to seem desperate or weird or like some lonely billionaire with nothing better to do than bother a woman who was probably working both her jobs right now and didn't have time for... His phone buzzed. Lena, quick question. Is it normal to still be thinking about a $40 burger the next day? Or does that mean I need better food in my life? Ethan smiled at his phone, relief flooding through him in a way that felt completely disproportionate to a simple text. Ethan, probably both. Are you working? Lena, lunch break. Currently eating a sad desk salad and regretting every life choice that led to this moment. Ethan, where are you? Lena, the boutique in Soho. Why? He checked his watch. 1:15. He had a call at 3 with the board, but nothing urgent until then. Ethan, what's the address? Lena, you're not seriously asking what I think you're asking. Ethan, address, Lena. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before she finally sent the location. Ethan grabbed his jacket and was out the door before he could overthink it. 40 minutes later, he walked into a boutique so aggressively trendy it made his eyes hurt. Everything was white and chrome and displayed like museum pieces. A single handbag on a pedestal, scarves arranged into abstract art, price tags that required a double take. Lena stood behind the counter looking deeply uncomfortable in a crisp white shirt and black slacks that were clearly the store uniform. When she saw him, her eyes went wide. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, glancing nervously toward the back where voices murmured behind a closed door. "Bringing you lunch." He held up the bag from the Italian place 3 blocks over. "You said your salad was sad." "Ethan, I'm working. I can't just..." 5 minutes. You get a break, right? She looked torn between gratitude and panic. "My boss is in the back. If she sees..." Sees what? A customer who wants to buy something? He picked up a scarf at random, checked the tag, and managed not to react to the $300 price. "I'll take this." "You don't want that scarf." "How do you know?" "Because it's hideous and costs more than my weekly grocery budget." He looked at the scarf again. She was right. It was hideous. "I'll take 2. Ethan Dupukushi. The door to the back room opened, and a woman emerged who looked like she'd been assembled by a committee dedicated to intimidating retail workers. Severe black dress, geometric haircut, expression that suggested she'd never smiled in her life. "Lena, I thought I heard voices." Her eyes landed on Ethan, and something shifted in her face, recognition, calculation, the specific look people got when they realized who he was. "Oh, Mr. Rowe. What a pleasant surprise." "Just browsing," Ethan said smoothly. "Lena was helping me." "Of course, Lena is one of our most dedicated employees." The words sounded complimentary, but the tone suggested otherwise. "Though I do hope she's not being too familiar with our clientele." Lena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and Ethan felt a flash of anger on her behalf. "Actually, we're old friends," he said, his voice taking on the particular edge he used in hostile board meetings. "And she's been extremely professional. I'll take these scarves and whatever else she recommends. Price isn't an issue." The woman's eyes lit up like Christmas had come early. "Wonderful. Lena, please give Mr. Rowe our complete attention. I'll be in my office if you need anything." She disappeared, and Lena exhaled slowly. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did." She was being condescending. She's always condescending. That's just her personality. Lena started ringing up the scarves with practiced efficiency. "And you really don't need to buy these. They're terrible." "I know, but now you get commission, right?" She paused, looking up at him. "That's why you're doing this?" "Partially. Also because I brought you lunch and didn't think about the fact that you might not be able to actually eat it here." Lena glanced toward the back office, then made a decision. "Give me 2 minutes to close out this sale, then meet me at the coffee shop next door. I'll take my 15-minute break." "Deal." She rang him up for $600 worth of merchandise he'd never use, handed him a bag with a professionally fake smile, and said, "Thank you for your purchase, Mr. Rowe. Please come again." "I'm sure I will," he replied, matching her tone. He left, waited 3 minutes at the coffee shop, and then Lena appeared, still looking slightly frazzled. 15 minutes, she said, sitting down across from him. That's all I have. Then you better eat fast. He pushed the bag toward her. She opened it, and her expression softened. You remembered. That you like pesto? You mentioned it once, like 2 years ago. I did? You did. She pulled out the sandwich and for a moment just stared at it. Ethan, this is really nice, but you can't just show up at my work and spend hundreds of dollars so I can take a lunch break. That's insane. Why not? Because, she gestured helplessly, because that's not how normal people operate. You can't just throw money at problems. I wasn't throwing money at a problem. I was buying ugly scarves so your boss would leave you alone long enough to eat something that isn't depressing. He leaned back. There's a difference. Is there? I think so. She took a bite of her sandwich, and he watched her shoulders relax slightly. This is really good, she admitted. Better than the sad salad. Miles better. She ate in silence for a moment, then said, Why'd you really come here? I wanted to see you. The honesty of it hung between them, and Lena set down her sandwich, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. We had one dinner, Ethan. I know. One dinner that was supposed to be a disaster, and we just tolerated it. That's all. Is that what it was to you? Tolerable? She didn't answer right away. No, she said finally. It was good. Really good. But that doesn't change the fact that our lives are completely different. You live in a penthouse in Manhattan. I live in a fifth-floor walk-up in Queens. You're a billionaire CEO. I fold rich women's sweaters for $12 an hour. And that matters, Ethan. You can pretend it doesn't, but it does. Why? Because, she stopped, frustrated. Because people like me don't end up with people like you. That's not how the world works. Says who? Says everyone. Says common sense. Says every romantic comedy that's ever been made where they pretend class doesn't matter, and then the poor girl magically fixes all her problems by falling in love with the rich guy. She shook her head. Real life isn't like that. I'm not asking you to fix anything, Ethan said quietly. I just wanted to bring you lunch. Why? Because I liked talking to you last night. Because I haven't slept that well in years. Because when I woke up this morning, the first thing I thought about was whether it would be weird to text you, and then I sat in a meeting thinking about your laugh instead of Singapore expansion projections. He met her eyes. Because I'm tired of pretending I'm fine when I'm not. And you're the first person in 5 years who seems to understand that without me having to explain it. Lena stared at him, and he watched her process what he'd just said. Her fingers twisted the napkin in her lap, the same nervous gesture from last night. This is a bad idea, she said softly. Probably. We barely know each other anymore. We could fix that. Ethan, one more dinner, he interrupted. Not a blind date this time, just us, deliberately choosing to spend time together. If it's terrible, we'll call it an experiment and move on. But if it's not... He let the sentence hang. She looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. One more dinner. Yeah? Yeah. But somewhere normal this time. Not a place where burgers cost $40. Deal. When are you free? I work every day this week except Wednesday evening. Wednesday. I'll pick you up at 7. You don't need to... Lena, I'm picking you up. Let me do this one thing without arguing. She smiled despite herself. Fine, but I'm choosing the restaurant. Whatever you want. Her phone alarm went off, the 15-minute warning. She stood reluctantly, wrapping up the rest of her sandwich. I have to get back before Patricia decides I'm abusing break privileges. Patricia's your boss? Patricia is everyone's nightmare in human form, but yes. She gathered her things. Thank you for this, really. You're welcome. She started to leave, then turned back. Ethan, last night you asked if I ever resented how differently things turned out for us. Yeah. Can I ask you the same question? He considered that. Sometimes I resent that having everything means nothing when you're still lonely. Does that count? Yeah, she said quietly. That counts. She left, and Ethan sat alone with his coffee, watching through the window as she disappeared back into the boutique. His phone buzzed with emails demanding attention, meetings that needed scheduling, decisions that couldn't wait. He ignored all of it for another 5 minutes, just sitting there like an idiot, feeling something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope was a dangerous thing. It made you stupid and reckless, and willing to show up at someone's workplace with expensive sandwiches just to see them smile. He was definitely in trouble. Wednesday took forever to arrive. Ethan tried to focus on work, but kept finding himself distracted at the worst possible times. During a presentation about Q4 marketing strategy, he zoned out thinking about where to take Lena for dinner. In the middle of reviewing contracts, he caught himself wondering what she was reading now, if she'd gotten further in her Shadow Queen series. Daniel noticed immediately. "You're being weird," he said on Tuesday, cornering Ethan in his office after everyone else had left. "I'm working." "You're staring at your computer like it personally offended you, and you've checked your phone 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Daniel grinned. "This is about Sarah, isn't it? I knew you two would hit it off." "Her name's Lena." "What?" "The woman you set me up with. Lena Hart, not Sarah." Daniel's expression went from smug to confused. "Wait, what?" "But Maya said she was setting you up with—" Understanding dawned. "Oh, shit. Maya set you up with her friend Lena. And you set me up with someone named Sarah, who I'm guessing never showed up." "Nope." "So you and Lena just ran into each other at the same restaurant?" "Apparently our friends decided to use the same venue for their matchmaking schemes." Daniel started laughing. "That's actually incredible. What are the odds?" "I haven't calculated them, but yeah, pretty slim." "And you're seeing her again?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Tomorrow night." "Holy shit, you actually like her." "Don't make it a thing. It's already a thing. You never see anyone twice. You barely wanted to see Sarah once." Daniel leaned against the desk, studying him. "What's different about Lena?" Ethan didn't have a good answer for that. Or rather, he had too many answers, and none of them made sense when he tried to put them into words. "She gets it," he said finally. "The loneliness, the exhaustion, the feeling like you're just going through the motions and hoping nobody notices you're barely holding it together." He paused. "And she doesn't want anything from me." "Everyone wants something, Ethan. Not her. She tried to refuse a ride home, argued with me about buying scarves at her work, acts like my money is an inconvenience rather than an asset." He shook his head. "It's different." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Just be careful, okay? I know you haven't done this in a long time, and I don't want to see you get hurt." "I'm a grown man, Daniel. I can handle dinner." "It's never just dinner when you look like that." "Like what?" "Like you're already halfway to something you can't take back." Maybe he was. But sitting there in his empty office at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, with the city lights spread out below him, and the silence pressing in from all sides, Ethan couldn't bring himself to care about being careful. Careful had kept him safe for 5 years. It had also kept him alone. Wednesday evening, he left work early for the first time in months. Marcus drove him to Queens, and Ethan found himself nervous in a way he hadn't been since he was 16 and picking up Caroline for junior prom. Lena's building looked worse in daylight, peeling paint more obvious, the broken security light joined by a flickering second-floor window. He texted her that he was outside, and a minute later she emerged wearing jeans and a sweater that had definitely seen multiple winters, her hair down and curling slightly around her shoulders. She looked perfect. "Hey," she said, sliding into the car beside him. Closer than Friday, he noticed. Close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something floral and cheap, and somehow better than any expensive perfume he'd ever encountered. "Hey yourself, where are we going?" "You'll see. Marcus, do you know Donardo's in Astoria?" Marcus nodded. "I do. Good choice." Lena grinned at Ethan. "Fair warning, it's not fancy, but the lasagna is the best in New York, and I will fight anyone who disagrees." Strong opinion about lasagna. "I have strong opinions about all food. It's a personality trait." Donardo's turned out to be exactly the kind of place Ethan never went to anymore. Red checkered tablecloths, candles in wine bottles, family photos covering every inch of wall space. It smelled like garlic and tomatoes and bread. And when they walked in, an elderly woman behind the counter took one look at Lena and lit up. "Lena, baby, it's been too long." She came around to hug her, then turned shrewd eyes on Ethan. "And who's this?" "Ethan, meet Rosa. She's been feeding me since I was 12. Rosa, this is Ethan. He's a friend." Friend, Rosa repeated, clearly not believing it for a second. Uh-huh. Well, any friend of Lena's gets the good table. Come on. She led them to a corner booth, brought them wine without asking, and disappeared with instructions to trust her on the food. You come here a lot? Ethan asked. Used to. When my dad was alive, we'd come every Sunday after church. Rosa's known my family forever. Lena traced the rim of her wine glass. I haven't been able to afford it much lately, but she always acts like I was just here yesterday. She seems great. She is. Her son runs the kitchen now, but she still oversees everything like a general commanding troops. Lena smiled. Fair warning, she's going to bring us enough food for 6 people and then be personally offended if we don't eat all of it. She wasn't wrong. The food started arriving in waves: antipasto, bread, salad, and then lasagna that looked like architecture and tasted like someone's grandmother had poured love directly into the pan. Okay, Ethan said after the first bite. You were right. This is incredible. Told you. Rosa doesn't mess around. They ate and talked, and somehow it felt even easier than Friday. Lena told him about the Shadow Queen book. Apparently the protagonist had just discovered a betrayal and was currently burning down half a kingdom in revenge. And Ethan found himself actually engaged in the plot summary. So she's justified in the arson? He asked. Completely. Her best friend slept with her husband and then tried to steal her throne. Burning down a castle or two is the minimum acceptable response. That's a very specific moral framework. Fantasy novels have taught me that most problems can be solved with fire and dramatic declarations. She grinned. It's not applicable to real life, but it's therapeutic to read. What would you do if you could solve your problems with fire and dramatic declarations? Burn down the boutique, she said immediately, then laughed. I'm kidding, mostly, but there's definitely a list of people who'd get strongly worded dramatic declarations. Your boss? Top of the list, along with the insurance company that keeps denying my mom's claims, the landlord who won't fix our heat, and whoever invented student loans. That's a solid list. What about you? Who gets burned in Ethan Rowe's fantasy revenge? He thought about it. Half my board. The financial reporters who write think pieces about my decisions without knowing the full context. And whoever designed my building's elevator music. The elevator music? It's aggressively cheerful jazz that plays at 6 in the morning. It's psychological warfare. Lena laughed, really laughed, and the sound made something in Ethan's chest feel lighter. Rosa appeared with dessert they hadn't ordered, winked at Lena, and vanished again. She's trying to impress you, Lena said, looking embarrassed. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because this whole thing is probably weird for you. The restaurant, Rosa treating me like family, all of it. It's not your world. Maybe I like your world better than mine. She looked at him skeptically. You don't mean that. Why not? Because your world has doormen and heated car seats and restaurants where people bring you food you didn't order because they want to impress you, not because they love you. And that's better? Isn't it? No, Ethan said quietly. It's lonelier. Lena set down her fork, studying him. You really mean that? I do. I have everything, Lena. Everything anyone could possibly want. And most days I'd trade it all to feel like I belong somewhere the way you belong here. She was quiet for a long moment. You know what the worst part about being poor is? She said finally. It's not the struggling or the exhaustion or even the fear that one unexpected bill will destroy everything. It's the invisibility. People look right through you. You serve them coffee, fold their clothes, process their insurance forms, and they never see you as a full person. You're just a function, a thing that does a task. I see you, Ethan said. I know. That's what scares me. Why does that scare you? Because I'm not used to it. Because I don't know what to do with someone who actually pays attention. Because, she stopped, looking frustrated with herself. Because I have terrible instincts when it comes to people who make me feel things. What kind of things? The kind that make me want to trust you, even though I know better. The conversation was veering into territory that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Ethan could feel the shift happening, the movement from casual dinners to something that might actually matter. What if you did trust me? He asked. What's the worst that could happen? You could break my heart. She said it simply, like stating a fact. And I'm barely holding my life together as it is. I don't think I'd survive heartbreak right now. I don't want to break your heart. Nobody ever does. It just happens when lives are too different and reality catches up to whatever fantasy you've been building. Is that what this is to you? A fantasy? Isn't it? She gestured between them. You're a billionaire widower with a daughter and a company to run. I'm a broke retail worker who lives paycheck to paycheck and falls asleep doing data entry at midnight. In what version of reality does this actually work? Maybe this one. Ethan, I'm not asking you to figure out the rest of our lives right now, Lena. I'm just asking for more nights like this. More conversations. More time to see if whatever this is might be worth the risk. She looked at him with an expression caught between hope and fear, and Ethan recognized it because he felt exactly the same way. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Me too. You don't seem scared. I'm terrified. I haven't felt anything real in 5 years, and now I can't stop thinking about you, and I have no idea what I'm doing. He reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, she let him take her hand. But I'd rather be scared and try than safe and alone. Her fingers tightened around his. One step at a time, one step at a time. And if it gets too complicated, we'll figure it out together. She smiled, small and uncertain, but real. Okay. 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 Rosa appeared again, looking far too pleased with herself, and started clearing plates while asking Lena about her mother and her brother and whether that nice boy from the neighborhood ever got his act together. Ethan sat back and watched Lena navigate the conversation with easy affection and realized Daniel had been right. He was already halfway to something he couldn't take back. The drive home felt different than Friday. Lena sat closer, their conversation flowing from books to family to the random observation that pigeons were probably running an organized crime syndicate nobody had noticed yet. Think about it, Lena insisted. They're everywhere. They communicate in ways we don't understand, and nobody questions when they just appear places. Classic mob behavior. You've thought about this a lot. I have a long subway commute and an active imagination. Pigeon crime syndicates are just the beginning. When they pulled up to her building, Lena didn't immediately get out. Thank you for tonight, she said, for dinner and for everything else. Thank you for trusting me enough to try. She leaned over and kissed his cheek, quick and soft and over before he could react, then slipped out of the car before he could say anything. He watched her go inside, then sat there like an idiot with his hand pressed to his cheek where her lips had been. Home, Mr. Rowe? Marcus asked, and Ethan could hear the amusement in his voice. Yeah, home. His phone buzzed before they'd even left her block. Lena. For the record, I'm scared and trying, just so we're clear. Ethan. Me too. Same time next week? Lena. Yeah, but I'm picking the place again. You have terrible instincts about restaurants. Ethan. I'll defer to your expertise. Lena. Smart man. Good night, Ethan. Ethan. Good night, Lena. He went home to his empty penthouse and checked on Sophie, who was already asleep with a plastic stegosaurus clutched in one hand. He stood in her doorway and thought about Lena's question, about whether he resented how differently their lives had turned out. The answer was more complicated than he'd admitted. He didn't resent his success or his wealth, but he resented what it had cost him, the isolation, the suspicion that everyone wanted something from him, the exhaustion of never being able to trust anyone's motives. Except Lena didn't want anything from him. She tried to refuse his help, argued about accepting rides, looked uncomfortable when he spent money on her behalf. She just wanted him. The tired, lonely, halfway broken version that he'd been hiding from everyone else. And somehow, that was more terrifying than any business deal he'd ever negotiated. The next morning, he woke up to a text from Daniel. How'd it go? Ethan. Good. Daniel. That's it? Just good? Ethan. Really good. Daniel. I'm taking credit for this. You know that, right? I'm the one who forced you to go to that first dinner. Ethan. You set me up with the wrong woman. Daniel. Details. I created the circumstances. The universe did the rest. Ethan smiled despite himself. Maybe the universe had done the rest. Or maybe it was just dumb luck that he and Lena had both said yes to blind dates they didn't want, showed up at the same restaurant at the same time, and decided to stay despite every reason to leave. Whatever it was, he was grateful for it. The days developed a rhythm after that. Ethan and Lena texted throughout the day, Nothing profound, just small observations and stupid jokes, and the kind of constant communication that happened when you actually wanted to talk to someone. She sent him photos of particularly hideous items at the boutique. He sent her pictures of Sophie's increasingly elaborate dinosaur arrangements. They had dinner again the following Wednesday. And the Wednesday after that. Always somewhere Lena chose, always places that felt real and lived in rather than polished and perfect. And slowly, carefully, they started letting their guards down. Lena told him about her ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago who'd borrowed money he never repaid and then ghosted her when she asked about it. About her fear that she'd wake up one day at 50 and realize she'd spent her entire life surviving instead of living. About the dreams she'd given up because responsibility had come first and then become permanent. Ethan told her about the crushing pressure of living up to his father's legacy. About nights when he couldn't sleep because he was terrified of making a wrong decision that would destroy everything his family had built. About Sophie's nightmares and how helpless he felt when she cried for her mother and he couldn't fix it. They talked about loneliness and fear and the specific exhaustion of carrying weight nobody else could see. And somewhere in those conversations, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. There was no moment where everything changed. It was gradual, like realizing you'd been cold for so long you'd forgotten what warmth felt like, and then someone lit a fire and you remembered. 6 weeks after their accidental blind date, Ethan realized he was in love with her. He was sitting in a meeting about mergers and acquisitions, and his phone buzzed with a text from Lena complaining about a customer who'd tried to return a dress she'd clearly worn to an event, and he'd smiled without thinking about it. And Robert had noticed. "You've been different lately," Robert said after the meeting ended. "Different how?" "Less miserable. It's unsettling." Ethan laughed. Sorry to disturb you with my improved mood." "Is it the woman Daniel mentioned? Lena?" "Maybe. She must be pretty special." "She is." Robert studied him for a moment. "Just be careful, Ethan. You have a lot to protect. Sophie, the company, your reputation. Make sure she understands what she's getting into." The words rankled more than they should have. "She's not after anything. Everyone's after something. Not her. Then she's either genuine or very good at playing the long game." Robert's expression softened slightly. "I'm not trying to be cynical. I just don't want to see you get hurt. Or worse, see Sophie get attached to someone who doesn't stick around." Sophie. The thought stopped Ethan cold. He'd been so focused on his own feelings, he hadn't fully considered what it would mean to introduce Lena into his daughter's life. That night, he brought it up during dinner at a small Thai place Lena loved. "I need to ask you something," he said. She looked up from her pad thai. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. He struggled to find the right words. "We've been doing this for almost 2 months now, and I think it's going well, really well. But I have Sophie to think about. And if we're going to keep doing this, eventually she's going to notice. And I need to know if you're okay with that, with potentially being part of her life." Lena set down her fork, and he couldn't read her expression. "You want me to meet Sophie?" "Eventually. Not right now, but yeah, if this is going somewhere." "Where do you want it to go?" The question hung between them, honest and unavoidable. "Somewhere real," Ethan said. "Somewhere that lasts, but only if that's what you want too." Lena was quiet for a long moment, and Ethan felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "I'm terrified of meeting Sophie," she said finally. "Because if I meet her and she hates me, that's one thing, but if I meet her and she likes me and then this doesn't work out," she trailed off. "Kids get attached, and I don't want to be another person who disappoints her." "You wouldn't be." "You can't promise that." "No," he admitted. "But I can promise that I wouldn't introduce you to her unless I was sure. And I am sure, Lena, about you, about this." She looked at him with those brown eyes that saw too much, and he watched her make a decision. "Okay," she said softly. "When you're ready, I'll meet her." "Yeah?" "Yeah. But Ethan, I need you to be sure, really sure. Because I'm already in too deep to walk away without it destroying me, and I need to know you're in just as deep." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm in love with you." The words came out before he'd planned them, raw and honest and terrifying. Lena's eyes went wide. "What?" "I'm in love with you. he repeated, because there was no taking it back now. I have been for weeks, maybe longer. And I know it's fast, and I know our lives are complicated, but I don't care. I love you. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for a horrible moment, Ethan thought he'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then she smiled. I love you too, she whispered. I've been trying not to, but I do. I love you so much it scares me. He stood up, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her right there in the middle of the restaurant while other diners pretended not to watch. She tasted like peanut sauce and tears and possibility, and Ethan thought that maybe, just maybe, he'd finally found something worth more than all the money in the world. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning like idiots, Lena pressed her forehead against his. We're doing this? She asked. We're doing this. Even though it's terrifying? Especially because it's terrifying. She laughed, and he kissed her again, and for the first time in 5 years, Ethan Rowe felt completely, entirely, impossibly alive. The morning everything started falling apart began like any other Wednesday. Ethan was in his office reviewing contracts when his assistant Jennifer knocked on the door, her face pale. Mr. Rowe, we have a problem. He looked up from the paperwork. What kind of problem? The Meridian Project. There's been a mistake. A big one. Ethan's stomach dropped. The Meridian Project was their flagship development, a billion-dollar commercial real estate deal that had taken 3 years to negotiate. It was supposed to break ground next month. Define big. Jennifer handed him a tablet and Ethan scanned the email chain, his blood running cold with each line. Someone on their legal team had miscalculated the zoning requirements, not by a small margin, by enough that their entire development plan violated city regulations they'd somehow missed during due diligence. Who caught this? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The city planning department. They sent this over an hour ago. They're threatening to pull our permits entirely unless we can fix it. How did we miss this? I don't know yet. But Ethan, Jennifer hesitated. It was Kyle's team handling the zoning review. Kyle Morrison, 26 years old, Harvard law graduate, son of one of their major investors. Smart kid, eager to prove himself and apparently in way over his head. Get him in here, now, and call an emergency meeting with the executive team in 30 minutes. Jennifer left, and Ethan sat down heavily in his chair, his mind racing through scenarios. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a potential disaster. They had investors expecting returns, contractors lined up, pre-lease tenants waiting. If this fell through, it would cost them hundreds of millions, maybe more. His phone buzzed. Lena. Good morning. Still on for dinner tonight? I found a new dumpling place I want to try. He stared at the message, torn between the crisis unfolding around him and the simple normalcy of dinner plans with the woman he loved. 2 months together, and she'd become the best part of his days. The thing he looked forward to when everything else felt overwhelming. Might need to rain check. Crisis at work. 3 dots appeared immediately. Everything okay? Will be. Just need to handle some things. I'll call you later. Okay. Good luck. Love you. Love you too. He set the phone down just as Kyle appeared in the doorway, looking like he might vomit. Mr. Rowe, I can explain. Sit down. Kyle sat, his hands shaking slightly. He was a good kid, Ethan reminded himself. Inexperienced, but not incompetent. This was the kind of mistake that happened when you promoted someone too fast and didn't give them enough support. Talk me through what happened, Ethan said, keeping his voice level. Kyle explained in halting sentences. He delegated the final zoning review to a junior associate who'd missed a recent amendment to the city code. Kyle had signed off on it without double-checking because he'd trusted the associate's work. Classic failure of oversight. I know I screwed up, Kyle finished miserably. I take full responsibility. Full responsibility doesn't fix the problem. I know, but I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll work around the clock. Kyle, Ethan stopped him. Right now I need you to breathe and think clearly. Can you do that? The kid nodded, looking grateful for the lifeline. Good. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pull every piece of documentation related to this project. Every permit, every filing, every email. Then you're going to work with our legal team to figure out exactly how big this problem is and what our options are for fixing it. Understand? Yes, sir. And Kyle, This doesn't leave this room until we know what we're dealing with. The last thing we need is panic. Kyle left, and Ethan spent the next 6 hours in meetings that went nowhere productive. The problem was worse than he'd initially thought. Fixing the zoning issues would require redesigning significant portions of the development, which would delay construction by at least 9 months and cost them millions in penalties and lost revenue. By 7 that evening, Ethan was standing in front of his executive team, watching their faces as he laid out the situation. "So what are you suggesting?" Robert asked. "We eat the costs and redesign?" "That's one option." "What's the other option?" "We find a way to work with the city, get variances, negotiate modifications to the code, call in some favors." "That's not going to be popular. You're talking about political maneuvering on a project that's already controversial." Ethan knew he was right. The Meridian project had faced opposition from community groups who thought it would displace local businesses. Getting special treatment from the city would only fuel that narrative. "I'm open to suggestions," he said. The room erupted into arguments. Some wanted to cut their losses and redesign. Others wanted to push forward aggressively. A few suggested firing Kyle publicly to show they took accountability seriously. That last suggestion made Ethan's jaw tighten. "We're not throwing Kyle under the bus," he said firmly. "This was a systems failure, not just one person's mistake." "With all due respect," one of the board members said, "his father is a major investor. Firing him sends a message that nobody's above accountability. Or it sends a message that we scapegoat junior employees for senior leadership failures," Ethan countered. "Kyle made a mistake, yes, but where was his supervision? Where were the checks and balances that should have caught this?" The room went quiet. "We fixed the problem," Ethan said. "We take responsibility as a company, and we make sure it doesn't happen again. But we don't ruin a kid's career because we need someone to blame." The meeting dragged on for another 2 hours before finally breaking up with no clear resolution. Ethan returned to his office, exhausted and frustrated, and found a voicemail from Lena. "Hey, it's me. I know you're dealing with work stuff, but I wanted to check in. Call me when you can, okay? Love you." He called her back immediately. "Hey," she answered, her voice soft. "How bad is it?" "Bad. Really bad." He slumped in his chair. "We might lose $1 billion project because someone missed a zoning amendment. Can you fix it?" "I don't know yet, maybe, but it's going to be messy either way." Lena was quiet for a moment. "Who made the mistake?" "Junior lawyer on my team, Kyle Morrison." "What's going to happen to him?" "Some people want him fired." "But you don't." "No, he screwed up, but it wasn't malicious, just inexperience and bad oversight." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "I'm sorry about dinner. I know you were excited about the dumpling place." "Ethan, I don't care about dumplings. I care about you. Are you okay?" "Honestly, I don't know. I'm tired and frustrated, and I have no idea how to fix this without either losing hundreds of millions or compromising our principles." "What would compromising your principles look like?" "Pressuring the city to give us special treatment, throwing money at the problem until it goes away, making Kyle the fall guy so investors feel like we handled it." He paused. "All things I could do. All things that would make this easier." "But you won't do them." "No, I won't." "That's why I love you," Lena said quietly. "You actually give a damn about doing the right thing even when it costs you." Her words hit him harder than they should have. He'd been so focused on the business implications, he hadn't stopped to think about the human cost. Kyle was 26 years old, brilliant and ambitious and terrified he'd destroyed his career before it even started. "Lena? Yeah? Can I ask you something that might sound weird?" "Always." "If you were in Kyle's position, young, scared, knowing you made a huge mistake, what would you need from your boss right now?" She didn't answer immediately, and he could almost hear her thinking. "Honestly," she said finally, "I'd need to know that one mistake didn't define me, that I wasn't disposable, that someone believed I could do better." She paused. "When I worked at this terrible call center a few years ago, I accidentally deleted an entire customer database, like hundreds of records just gone. I was sure I'd be fired. But my supervisor, this woman named Diane, she sat me down and said, 'You're going to fix this and you're going to learn from it, and then you're going to be better at your job than anyone else here.' And she was right. I stayed late for 2 weeks recreating those records, and I never made that mistake again." "Itigwe? Well, I mean, what?" What happened to Diane? She got laid off 6 months later when the company downsized. But I still think about her, about how she saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Ethan sat with that for a moment. You think I should give Kyle another chance? I think you should do whatever feels right to you. But yeah, if he's genuinely trying to fix his mistake and learn from it, I think people deserve second chances, especially when they're scared and young and just need someone to believe in them. When did you get so wise? I've made a lot of mistakes, Ethan. I know what it feels like to need someone to see past them. They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything, about her day at the boutique and his frustration with the board. And by the time they hung up, Ethan felt steadier. The next morning, he called Kyle into his office. The kid looked like he hadn't slept. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes slightly rumpled, the desperate expression of someone waiting for an execution. Sit, Ethan said. Kyle sat. I talked to the team last night. We're going to redesign the project to meet the zoning requirements. It's going to cost us, and it's going to delay construction, but it's the right move. Kyle nodded miserably. I also told them we're not firing you. Kyle's head snapped up. What? You made a mistake, a big one, but you owned it, and you've been working your ass off to fix it. That counts for something. Mr. Rowe, Kyle's voice cracked. I cost the company hundreds of millions of dollars. You made an oversight that revealed systemic problems in our review process, problems I should have caught months ago. Ethan leaned forward. You're not taking the fall for this alone, Kyle. We're all responsible, and we're all going to fix it together. I don't understand. It's simple. You're going to work with our legal team on the redesign. You're going to help implement better oversight protocols so this doesn't happen again. And you're going to learn from this experience so that 10 years from now, when you're running your own projects, you'll know exactly what not to do. Kyle stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You're giving me more responsibility after I screwed up this badly? I'm giving you a chance to prove you can do better. Don't make me regret it. I won't. I swear, Mr. Rowe, I'll work day and night to make this right. Kyle, breathe and go home and sleep. You look like hell. I can't sleep, not until we fix this. Then let me give you some advice, Ethan said. This job will take everything from you if you let it. Your time, your health, your relationships. Don't let it. Fix what you can, learn what you need to, and then go home and have a life. Because I promise you, the company will survive without you working yourself to death. Kyle nodded slowly, then stood. At the door, he turned back. Mr. Rowe, thank you for not giving up on me. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we fix this mess. After Kyle left, Ethan sat alone in his office and thought about Lena's words, about second chances and seeing potential, and how one person's belief could change everything. He texted her. Thank you for last night. You helped more than you know. What did you decide? I'm giving him another chance, because someone I love reminded me that everyone deserves one. I'm proud of you, even though it's going to cost us millions, especially because of that. Money you can make back. Integrity is harder to find. He smiled at his phone, then got back to work. The next few weeks were brutal. Long days of negotiations with the city, redesign meetings that stretched past midnight, tense calls with investors who wanted blood. Ethan barely slept, barely ate, survived on coffee and sheer stubbornness. But through it all, Lena was there. Not fixing anything, she couldn't, but just being present. Showing up at his office at 10 o'clock with food he'd actually eat. Sending him stupid memes during particularly terrible conference calls. Reminding him that the world existed beyond quarterly reports and zoning amendments. 3 weeks into the crisis, she appeared at his office unannounced during a brief break between meetings. Jennifer tried to stop her, but Lena just smiled and said, 5 minutes, I promise. She walked into his office carrying a paper bag from the Italian place he liked. You didn't eat lunch, she said, setting it on his desk. Don't argue. I checked with Jennifer. I don't have time. Ethan, you look like you're about to pass out. Eat. He wanted to protest, but the smell of garlic and tomatoes made his stomach growl. He hadn't realized how hungry he was until food appeared in front of him. Lena sat across from him while he ate, not saying anything, just being there, and somehow that helped more than any advice or solution could have. How bad is it really? She asked finally. We're going to survive. Barely. But it's going to take another month to finalize everything, and we're looking at significant losses. He set down his fork. Robert thinks I'm being soft, stupid even, that I should have made an example of Kyle and moved on. Do you think you're being stupid? Sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep and I'm thinking about all the money we're losing. He met her eyes. But then I remember being Kyle's age and making my own mistakes, and my father giving me room to learn from them. And I think about the kind of company I want to run, the kind of person I want to be. And I think I'd rather lose money than lose myself. Lena reached across the desk and took his hand. That's not stupid. That's brave. Brave and stupid aren't mutually exclusive. Maybe not, but I'd take brave over practical any day. They sat like that for a moment, hands linked across expensive paperwork and cold coffee cups, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. Calm, clarity. The certainty that whatever happened with the Meridian project, he'd made the right choice. I love you, he said. I love you too, even when you're being a stubborn idiot who won't take care of himself. Especially then? Especially then. His phone buzzed, his next meeting starting, and Lena stood to leave. Wait, Ethan said. This weekend, are you free Saturday afternoon? I work mornings, but I'm off by 2. Why? I want you to meet Sophie. Lena froze halfway to the door. What? I know we talked about it before, but I think it's time, if you're ready. Ethan, you're in the middle of a crisis. Maybe we should wait until... I don't want to wait. I want you to meet my daughter. I want you to be part of my life, all of it, not just the parts that are convenient or easy. He stood, walking over to her. But only if you're ready. I'm not trying to rush you. Lena looked up at him, and he could see the fear in her eyes. Fear of screwing this up, of not being enough, of disappointing either him or Sophie or both. What if she doesn't like me? She asked quietly. She'll love you. How could she not? Kids are honest, Ethan. They don't do polite pretending. If she thinks I'm wrong for you, she'll say it. Then we'll deal with it, together. She took a shaky breath. Oh, okay, Saturday. But if this goes badly, I'm blaming you. Fair enough. Saturday arrived faster than Ethan was ready for. He spent Friday night cleaning his apartment. Actually cleaning, not just having the housekeeper do it, and trying to figure out how to explain Lena to a 6-year-old who barely remembered having a mother. Sophie was eating cereal at the kitchen counter when he finally broached the subject. Hey, sweetheart, I want to talk to you about something. She looked up, milk dripping from her spoon. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. I wanted to tell you that a friend of mine is coming over this afternoon. Her name is Lena. Is she your girlfriend? The directness of it startled him. Yes, she is. Is that okay? Sophie considered this while chewing her cereal. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't know. We could ask her. If she doesn't like dinosaurs, she can't be your girlfriend. That's a pretty strict rule. Dinosaurs are important, Dad. He smiled despite his nerves. I'll make sure to mention that. At 2:30, the doorbell rang, and Ethan's heart started racing. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with more composure than he felt walking to his own front door. Lena stood in the hallway looking terrified. She'd dressed carefully, jeans and a soft sweater, nothing too formal, but clearly chosen with thought. She held a wrapped package in both hands. I brought a gift, she said immediately. Is that weird? I didn't know if I should bring something, but then I thought maybe it would help break the ice, but now I'm worried it looks like I'm trying too hard. Ethan kissed her, cutting off the rambling. You're perfect, he said, and you're going to be great. You can't know that. I know you, that's enough. He led her inside, and Sophie appeared around the corner, curious and cautious in equal measure. Sophie, this is Lena. Lena, this is Sophie. Hi, Sophie said, studying Lena with the unblinking intensity only children could manage. Hi, Sophie. It's really nice to meet you. Lena crouched down to Sophie's eye level. Your dad's told me a lot about you. He talks about you too. A lot. It's kind of annoying. Sophie, Ethan started, but Lena laughed. That's fair. Adults can be pretty annoying when they like someone. Sophie's expression softened slightly. I like your hair. It's curly. Thanks. It has a mind of its own most days. Mine too. Sophie touched her own curls self-consciously. Dad doesn't know how to do it right. Hey, I try, Ethan protested. You used the wrong brush, Sophie said matter-of-factly, then turned back to Lena. Do you know about curly hair? I've been dealing with it my whole life. I might have some tips if you want. Sophie's eyes lit up. Really? Really? But first, Lena held out the wrapped package. I brought you something. Your dad mentioned you like dinosaurs. Sophie tore into the wrapping paper with enthusiasm, then gasped. It was a book. A big, beautiful hardcover about paleontology with detailed illustrations and fold-out pages. This is amazing! Sophie immediately sat down on the floor and started flipping through it. Look, Dad, it has a whole section on ankylosaurs. Those are my favorite. That's great, sweetheart. Sophie looked up at Lena with something approaching awe. How did you know ankylosaurs are the best dinosaurs? Lucky guess, Lena said, smiling. But I'd love to hear why you think so. And just like that, Sophie launched into an enthusiastic explanation of armor plating and tail clubs and why ankylosaurs were criminally underrated compared to T-Rexes. Lena sat down on the floor next to her, genuinely listening, asking questions that made Sophie's explanations get more animated. Ethan watched them together, his daughter and the woman he loved, sitting cross-legged on his living room floor talking about prehistoric creatures, and felt something shift in his chest. This was what he'd been missing. Not just romance or companionship, but this, family, warmth, the specific joy of watching people you love connect with each other. An hour passed without him noticing. Sophie showed Lena her entire dinosaur collection, arranged by period and species. Lena admired each one with the seriousness it deserved, and Sophie bloomed under the attention. Lena, do you want to help me build a volcano? Sophie asked suddenly. Dad's not very good at it, but maybe you are. I'm decent at volcanoes, Lena said. What do we need? They spent the rest of the afternoon constructing an elaborate dinosaur diorama involving baking soda volcanoes, plastic vegetation, and a complex narrative about territorial disputes between herbivores and carnivores. Ethan mostly watched, occasionally helping when called upon, but mostly just taking in the scene. At one point, Sophie climbed into Lena's lap while they waited for paint to dry, completely unself-conscious about it. Lena's arms came around her naturally, and they sat like that discussing whether pterodactyls counted as dinosaurs, and Ethan had to turn away because his eyes were suddenly burning. When it was time for Sophie's bath, she hugged Lena goodbye without hesitation. Will you come back? She asked. If your dad invites me, I'd love to. Good, because we didn't finish the volcano, and also I want to show you my rock collection next time. I can't wait. Ethan walked Lena to the door while Sophie headed to the bathroom, and the moment they were alone, Lena sagged against the wall. Oh my God, she breathed. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. You were perfect. I was freaking out the entire time. Did you see my hands shaking when I gave her the book? She loved the book. She loved you. Lena looked at him with tears in her eyes. She's amazing, Ethan. She's smart and funny and so much like you it hurts. She sat in your lap. I know. Lena wiped her eyes. I wasn't expecting that. And when she did, her voice cracked. I could see it, the three of us, actually being a family. And it scared me because I want it so badly, and I don't know if I deserve it. Ethan pulled her into his arms. You deserve everything. Do I? I'm nobody, Ethan. I can't give her the life you can. I can't afford fancy schools or trips to Europe or... She doesn't need fancy schools. She needs people who love her and show up for her and care about whether she thinks ankylosaurs are underrated. He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. She needs you. I need you. Lena kissed him then, desperate and grateful and still a little scared, and Ethan held her like she might disappear if he let go. I love you, she whispered against his mouth. Both of you. We love you too. She left, and Ethan returned to find Sophie already in her pajamas, clutching the dinosaur book. So, he asked, sitting on the edge of her bed, what did you think of Lena? I like her. She's nice. And she knows a lot about dinosaurs. She does. Dad? Sophie's voice got quieter. Is Lena going to be like my mom? The question landed like a punch. Ethan had known it was coming, but that didn't make it easier to answer. Would you want that? He asked carefully. Sophie thought about it with the seriousness she brought to everything. I don't really remember Mom, she admitted. Just little things. Her laugh, maybe, or the way she smelled, but not really her. That's okay, sweetheart. But I remember being sad. And I remember you being sad for a really long time. She looked up at him. You're not sad anymore when Lena's here. No, I'm not. Then I think I'd like it if she was around more. Not as my mom, maybe, but as someone who's part of our family. Ethan's throat tightened. I think I'd like that too. Sophie nodded, satisfied, then opened her book. Can you read me the ankylosaur section before bed? Absolutely. He read to her about armored dinosaurs and Cretaceous ecosystems, and when she finally fell asleep with the book still open across her chest, he sat there for a long time just watching her breathe. His phone buzzed. Lena, is she asleep? Just now. She likes you. A lot. I like her too. She's the best kid, Ethan. She asked if you were going to be part of our family. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. What did you say? I said, I hoped so. If that's what you want. It is. It's exactly what I want. But I'm still terrified I'll screw it up. Then we'll screw it up together and figure it out as we go. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's worth it. Yeah, it is. Ethan went to bed that night with a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Not just happiness, but something deeper. Contentment. The sense that his life was finally moving in the right direction after years of just surviving. The Meridian project was still a disaster. The board was still angry. Money was still being lost. But somehow, those problems felt manageable now. Because he wasn't facing them alone anymore. He had Lena. He had Sophie. He had something worth protecting that wasn't just his company or his reputation. He had a family again, and he'd do whatever it took to keep it. Over the next 2 months, Lena became a permanent fixture in their lives, and Ethan watched his daughter bloom in ways he hadn't known were possible. Sophie, who'd been quiet and withdrawn for years, started talking more, laughing louder, asking questions about everything from why the sky changed colors to whether dinosaurs would have liked pizza. And Lena answered every single question with the same patience and genuine interest, never talking down to her, never dismissing her curiosity as childish nonsense. It was a Tuesday evening in late November when Sophie came running into the kitchen where Ethan was attempting to cook dinner. A generous description for what was actually him staring at a recipe on his phone while burning garlic. Dad, can Lena come to my school thing on Friday? Ethan looked up from the smoking pan. What school thing? The family art show, remember? I made a painting and everyone's supposed to bring their families to see it. He'd completely forgotten. Between the ongoing Meridian disaster and a new acquisition deal that had appeared out of nowhere, his brain was operating at about 60% capacity. Of course I remember, he lied. And yes, Lena can come if she's free. You should ask her yourself. Sophie was already pulling out his phone, video calling Lena with the casual comfort of a kid who'd completely accepted this person into her world. Lena's face appeared on the screen, slightly grainy from what was probably a terrible connection in her apartment. Hey, Bug, she said, using the nickname that had appeared organically a few weeks ago. What's up? Can you come to my art show on Friday? It's at school at 6, and we're showing our family paintings, and there's going to be cookies. You had me at cookies. Of course I'll be there. Yes. Sophie did a little victory dance. Dad, she said yes. I heard. That's great, sweetheart. Sophie ran off to her room to continue whatever elaborate dinosaur scenario she'd been constructing, and Ethan took the phone from where she'd left it on the counter. Hey, he said. Hey, yourself. You're burning something. He looked down at the pan. How did you... I can see smoke in the background. Step away from the stove, Ethan. He turned off the burner, admitting defeat. I was trying to make pasta. How is it possible to burn pasta? I have many hidden talents. She laughed, and even through the pixelated connection, it made him smile. Want me to come over and save you from kitchen disaster? You just got home from work. Yeah, and I'm eating cereal for dinner because I'm too tired to cook. At least if I come to you, I can pretend I'm being useful while eating your food. Our food, he corrected. When are you going to stop acting like you're a guest here? When it stops feeling slightly surreal that I'm dating a billionaire who lives in a penthouse and has a kitchen bigger than my entire apartment. Lena, I'm kidding, mostly. I'll be there in 40 minutes. She showed up in 37 minutes carrying a grocery bag and looking exhausted but determined. Move, she said, kissing him quickly before taking over the kitchen. You're going to give Sophie food poisoning if I leave you unsupervised. He watched her work, comfortable and efficient in his space in a way that still surprised him. She'd started keeping spare clothes in his closet a few weeks ago. Her shampoo lived in his shower. Her books were scattered across his coffee table, bookmarks sticking out at random intervals. His penthouse, which had felt like a museum for years, beautiful and empty and cold, now felt like a home. You're staring, Lena said without turning around. I like watching you. That's slightly creepy. You like it, she smiled, despite herself. Maybe I do. They ate dinner as a chaotic trio, Sophie talking nonstop about her painting, and her friend Madison, who'd gotten in trouble for putting glitter in another kid's hair and whether penguins could be considered modern dinosaurs. After Sophie went to bed, Ethan and Lena collapsed on the couch together, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. She's getting attached, Lena said quietly. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. What happens if we don't work out? She's already lost one mother. I don't want to be another person who leaves. Then don't leave. Ethan, it's not that simple. Why not? She sat up, pulling away slightly to look at him. Because people keep staring at us. When we go out, when we're at school functions, everywhere. They see you and then they see me, and I can actually watch them doing the math, trying to figure out what someone like you is doing with someone like me. I don't care what people think, but I do. Because they're not subtle about it. Last week at the boutique, one of our regular customers asked if I was your assistant. When I said girlfriend, she actually laughed, like it was a joke. Ethan's jaw tightened. You didn't tell me that. Because what were you going to do? Call her and explain that poor people can date rich people? That would just make it worse. Lena, I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because it's real, and we can't just pretend it doesn't exist. She ran her hands through her hair, frustrated. Your world has expectations, Ethan, about who you should be with, how she should look and act, and what family she should come from. And I'm none of those things. You're everything, he said firmly. Everything that matters. To you. But what about everyone else? Your board, your investors, your business partners? What happens when they start questioning your judgment because you're with me? That won't happen. You don't know that. She was right, and they both knew it. The whispers had already started. Daniel had mentioned them carefully a few weeks ago, warning Ethan that some board members were concerned about optics and appropriate associations. Ethan had shut it down immediately, but the fact remained, people were watching, judging, making assumptions. Come to the charity gala with me next month, he said suddenly. Lena blinked. What? The annual winter gala. It's the biggest event we do. All the major investors, business partners, press coverage. Come with me. As my date. Officially. Ethan, that's insane. Why? Because, she gestured helplessly, because I don't belong at something like that. I don't have the right clothes. I don't know how to talk to those people. I'll say something wrong and embarrass you. You could never embarrass me. You say that now, but wait until I'm standing next to women in designer gowns who actually know which fork to use. And I'm the girl from Queens wearing a dress from a discount store who can't tell the difference between champagne and Prosecco. I don't know the difference either. Yes, you do. You're just being nice. He took her hands, making her look at him. Lena, I don't want you to change. I don't want you to pretend to be someone you're not. I just want you beside me at an event that matters, so everyone can see that you matter to me, that we're real. This feels like a statement. It is a statement that I'm done hiding the best thing in my life because other people might have opinions about it. She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see the war happening behind her eyes. Fear and hope and the desperate desire to believe this could actually work. Okay, she said finally. I'll go. Yeah? Yeah. But I'm going to need help with the whole gala-appropriate outfit situation because I literally have no idea what that even means. Done. Whatever you need. Ethan, I can't afford Let me do this, please. Just this once. Let me take care of something without arguing about it. She studied his face, then nodded. Okay, but just this once. He kissed her, grateful and relieved and terrified because he knew what he was really asking. He wasn't just inviting her to an event. He was asking her to step fully into his world, to face the scrutiny and judgment an inevitable criticism that came with being connected to him. And she was saying yes anyway. The next few weeks passed in a blur of normal life punctuated by moments of unexpected happiness. Sophie's art show was a success. Her painting of their family featured Ethan, Sophie, and Lena standing with approximately 15 dinosaurs, which Lena declared was the best portrait she'd ever seen. Thanksgiving came and went, with Lena splitting time between her family in Queens and Ethan's quiet dinner with Sophie. The Meridian project finally stabilized, the redesign approved, construction scheduled to begin in January with only moderate financial bloodshed. Kyle sent Ethan a thank you card, actually handwritten, expressing gratitude for the second chance and promising not to waste it. Ethan tucked it in his desk drawer and tried not to think about all the people in his life who'd never gotten second chances, who'd been crushed by one mistake and never recovered. Then December arrived, and with it, the gala. Lena showed up at his penthouse the afternoon of the event looking simultaneously beautiful and terrified. A stylist Daniel had recommended had helped her find a dress, deep green silk that somehow made her eyes look impossibly warm, and done something with her hair that made the curls look intentional rather than chaotic. She looked stunning. She also looked like she might throw up. "I can't do this," she said the moment she walked in. "Yes, you can. Ethan, I practiced small talk in the mirror for an hour this morning, and I still sound like an idiot." "You don't sound like an idiot. You sound nervous." "Same thing." He crossed to her, taking her hands. They were freezing despite the warmth of the apartment. "Hey, look at me." She did, and he saw the real fear there. Not of the event itself, but of failing. Of proving right everyone who'd said she didn't belong in his world. "You know what the best thing about you is?" he said. "My sparkling personality? Your honesty. The way you don't pretend to be anything you're not. Everyone at this gala is going to be performing, playing roles, managing images, saying what they think they should say. But not you. You're just going to be yourself. And that's going to make you the most interesting person there. Or the most out of place. Maybe both. But I'll be right there with you the entire time." She took a shaky breath. "Promise?" "Promise." Sophie emerged from her room where the nanny had been keeping her occupied, took one look at Lena, and gasped. "You look like a princess!" Lena laughed, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "Thanks, Bug. You think it's okay?" "It's perfect. Dad, doesn't she look perfect?" "She does," Ethan agreed, meaning it. The gala was being held at the Metropolitan Club, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers and the kind of old-money elegance that was designed to make newcomers feel inadequate. Ethan had been attending these events his entire adult life and still found them exhausting. They arrived fashionably late, and the moment they stepped out of the car, camera flashes erupted. Ethan had warned Lena about the photographers, but theory and practice were very different things. Her hand tightened on his arm. "Just smile and keep walking," he murmured. "They'll get their shots and leave us alone." They made it inside, and Ethan immediately regretted every decision that had led to this moment. The ballroom was packed with exactly the kind of people Lena had worried about. Women in gowns that cost more than her monthly rent, men in custom tuxedos discussing mergers and market fluctuations. And everyone was staring, not obviously. These were people who'd perfected the art of subtle observation, but Ethan could feel the weight of their attention, could see the barely concealed curiosity as they tried to figure out who Lena was and what she was doing here. "Ethan, good to see you." Robert materialized beside them, perfectly groomed as always, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "And this must be Lena. We've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope," Lena said, and Ethan heard the slight shake in her voice that probably nobody else would notice. "Of course." Robert's gaze swept over her, assessing. "That's a lovely dress." "Thank you." An awkward pause followed, and Ethan was about to fill it when Robert said, "Ethan, could I borrow you for just a moment? There's someone who wants to discuss the Singapore expansion." It was a test. Ethan recognized it immediately. Robert was separating them to see how Lena would handle being alone in a room full of strangers. "Actually, I'd prefer to—" "It's fine," Lena interrupted, squeezing his arm. "Go. I'll be okay." "You sure?" "Positive. I'll just grab a drink and people watch. It's fine." He didn't want to leave her, but making a scene would only make things worse. "I'll be right back. Take your time." Ethan let Robert lead him away. looking back once to see Lena standing alone near a pillar, trying to look comfortable and failing. The conversation about Singapore lasted exactly 3 minutes before the investor Robert had promised materialized and turned out to be his wife, who had zero interest in international expansion and just wanted to complain about the catering at last year's gala. By the time Ethan extracted himself and returned to where he'd left Lena, she was gone. Panic flared immediately. He scanned the ballroom, pushing through clusters of conversations, ignoring people trying to catch his attention. He found her on the terrace, standing alone in the cold without a coat, her arms wrapped around herself. "Lena, what are you doing out here? It's freezing." She didn't turn around. "Just needed some air." He shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, then moved to stand beside her. "What happened?" "Nothing happened." "Lena, really, nothing specific happened. It's just—" She gestured vaguely toward the ballroom. "I don't belong here, Ethan, and everyone in there knows it." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. I was standing there trying to look normal, and this woman, older, wearing enough diamonds to fund a small country, she comes up to me and asks if I'm with the catering company. When I said I was here with you, she actually looked me up and down and said, 'How interesting.'" Ethan's hands clenched. "Who was she?" "I don't know." "Does it matter?" "She's right. Look at me. I'm wearing a borrowed dress from a stylist I couldn't have afforded on my own, standing in a room full of people who belong here because they were born belonging, and I'm the charity case girlfriend who doesn't know which fork to use." "Stop it. Why?" "It's true. You can't fix class differences with good intentions, Ethan. This is your world. It's never going to be mine." "Then maybe my world is broken." She finally looked at him, surprised. "I'm serious," he continued. "You know what I see in there? People who've never worried about rent or medical bills or whether they can afford groceries. People who think their money makes them better than everyone else. People who've never done an honest day's work in their lives and judge others for struggling." He took her hands. "You're worth 10 of them, 100 of them. And if they can't see that, they're idiots." "You're biased." "Damn right I'm biased. I'm in love with you." Tears welled in her eyes. "This is so hard, Ethan. Harder than I thought it would be." "I know. I keep thinking about Sophie, about what happens when she gets older and her friends' parents start gossiping about her dad's girlfriend who came from nothing, about how that's going to affect her. Sophie doesn't care where you came from. She's 6. She doesn't understand how the world works yet, but she will. And when she does, she'll still love you. Because you show up for her every single day. Because you care about her dinosaur facts and help her with her homework and make her laugh. That matters more than any of this bullshit." Lena wiped her eyes, careful not to smudge the makeup the stylist had so carefully applied. "I want to believe that." "Then believe it." They stood together in the cold, the sounds of the gala muffled behind them, and Ethan made a decision. "Come on," he said, taking her hand. "Where are we going?" "Back inside. We're going to walk into that ballroom and we're going to dance and we're going to show everyone in there that I chose you. Not because you fit their idea of appropriate, but because you're real and honest and the best thing that's ever happened to me." "Ethan." "Basta. I'm done hiding the most important person in my life. I'm done letting other people's opinions dictate how I live, and I'm done watching you doubt yourself because some diamonds and Botox nightmare couldn't recognize quality when she saw it." Despite everything, Lena laughed. "Diamonds and Botox nightmare? Too much?" "Just enough." He led her back inside, and before she could talk herself out of it, pulled her onto the dance floor. A string quartet was playing something classical and pretentious, and Ethan had never been more grateful for all the cotillion lessons his mother had forced on him as a teenager. "I don't know how to dance like this," Lena whispered. "Just follow my lead. And if I step on your feet, pretend it was intentional." She smiled, and they moved together slowly, and Ethan was acutely aware of every eye in the room tracking their movement. Let them stare. Let them judge. Let them whisper about the billionaire and the girl from Queens who didn't match their expectations. He didn't care anymore. What he cared about was the woman in his arms, who was brave enough to walk into a room that didn't want her and stay anyway, who loved his daughter like she was her own, who saw him, really saw him, past the money and the reputation and the carefully constructed image. "Thank you," Lena said quietly, For what? For this. For defending me. For not being embarrassed to be seen with me. I could never be embarrassed. I'm proud to be with you. She rested her head against his shoulder, and they finished the dance in comfortable silence. When the song ended, Daniel appeared with Maya, Lena's friend who'd started this whole mess by setting up that first blind date. "You two look good together," Maya said, hugging Lena. "I'm taking full credit, by the way." "You set her up with someone else," Ethan pointed out. "Details. I created the circumstances. The universe handled the rest." They laughed, and slowly, the tension of the evening started to ease. A few of Ethan's actual friends, the ones who'd known him since before the money, who remembered him as just a kid from Queens who got lucky, came over to meet Lena and welcomed her warmly. Not everyone was kind. There were still stares, still whispered conversations behind hands, still women who looked at Lena like she was dirt on their expensive shoes. But there were also moments of unexpected grace. An older woman, someone's grandmother, Ethan gathered, approached them near the end of the evening and took Lena's hand. "Don't let them get to you, dear," she said quietly. "I married my husband 40 years ago when his family thought I was completely unsuitable, too poor, too ethnic, too everything wrong. But we built a good life anyway, and those same people who turned their noses up at me eventually came around. Or they didn't, and we stopped caring." She patted Lena's hand. "The ones who matter will see your worth. The rest aren't worth your time." She walked away before either of them could respond, disappearing into the crowd. Lena looked at Ethan with wonder. Did that really just happen? I think it did. Maybe this world isn't completely terrible, just mostly terrible, but getting better. They stayed until the end of the evening, not hiding, not leaving early, making it clear that they belonged there just as much as anyone else. On the drive home, Lena kicked off her heels and leaned against Ethan's shoulder. "That was exhausting," she said. "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm glad we did it, even the terrible parts." She turned to look at him. "You really meant what you said? About being proud to be with me?" "Every word." "Good. Because I'm proud to be with you too. Even when you drag me to fancy galas, where I have no idea what's happening." He kissed the top of her head. "No more galas for at least a month. I promise. I'll hold you to that." When they got home, Sophie was asleep, and the nanny had already left. They changed out of their formal clothes, Lena borrowing one of his t-shirts, Ethan in sweatpants, and collapsed on the couch together. "I have a confession," Lena said. "What's that?" "Part of me was hoping tonight would be a disaster so I'd have an excuse to never go to one of those things again. And now? Now I'm thinking maybe I could handle it occasionally, if you're there, and if there's good food. The food was terrible. That does lower my enthusiasm significantly." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Ethan thought about how far they'd come. From that first accidental dinner to this, sitting in his living room wearing sweatpants, talking about terrible gala food, completely comfortable with each other. "Lena? Move in with us." She went very still. "What? Move in. You're here almost every night anyway. Your toothbrush is in my bathroom. Your clothes are in my closet. Sophie asks for you the second she wakes up. Just make it official." "Ethan, that's a huge step." "I know. And I know it's scary and complicated, and there are 1,000 reasons to say no. But I'm asking anyway, because I love you and Sophie loves you, and this already feels like home when you're here." She sat up to look at him properly. "What about my apartment, my jobs, my mom?" "Keep the apartment if you want. We'll figure out the commute to your jobs. And your mom, we'll make sure she's taken care of. Whatever she needs." "You can't just fix everything with money." "I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm trying to build something. With you." Lena's eyes filled with tears again. "You're making this really hard to say no to." "Then don't say no. Say yes. What about Sophie? Have you asked her?" "I wanted to ask you first, but I know what she'd say. She asks me almost every day when you're coming over, when you're staying, if you'll be here for breakfast." "She does?" "She does. You're already part of this family, Lena. I'm just asking you to make it official." She was quiet for a long time, and Ethan forced himself not to push, not to rush her into a decision she wasn't ready for. "Okay," she said finally. Okay. Okay, I'll move in. But she held up a hand when he started to smile. We do this slowly. I'll keep my apartment for now, just in case. And we tell Sophie together. And I still pay my own bills and work my own jobs because I'm not going to be the kept girlfriend who depends on you for everything. Deal. As long as you let me help when you need it. I'll think about it. I'll take it. He kissed her then, deep and grateful and full of promise. And when they finally broke apart, they were both smiling. Should we tell Sophie in the morning? Lena asked. Let's tell her at breakfast. She's going to lose her mind. In a good way? In the best way. They went to bed, their bed now, officially, and Ethan lay awake for a long time just watching Lena sleep beside him, her hair a mess on the pillow, her breathing soft and even. 6 months ago, he'd been ready to cancel a blind date, ready to spend another evening alone in his empty penthouse, convincing himself that loneliness was just the price of success. And now he was here, planning breakfast announcements with the woman he loved, building a life that felt real and messy and absolutely perfect. The world outside might not understand them, might judge and gossip and question what they saw in each other. But in here, in the quiet of his bedroom with Lena sleeping beside him and his daughter down the hall, none of that mattered. He'd found his family, his home, his reason to keep going, and he wasn't letting go for anything. Sophie's reaction to Lena moving in was exactly what Ethan had predicted, pure, unfiltered joy, followed by approximately 40 questions about logistics that neither adult had fully thought through. So you'll be here every morning? Sophie asked, syrup dripping from her fork as she processed the news over Saturday pancakes. Every morning, Lena confirmed. And every night? Every night. And you'll help me with my science project about volcanoes? Absolutely. And we can have movie nights whenever we want? Within reason. You still have a bedtime. Sophie considered this, then turned to Ethan with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Dad, this is the best decision you've ever made. I agree, he said, catching Lena's eye across the table. What Sophie didn't see, what Ethan was carefully not mentioning, was how complicated the actual logistics were turning out to be. Lena had been slowly moving her things over for 2 weeks now, and the process had revealed just how different their lives really were. Her entire apartment could have fit inside his living room. Everything she owned, clothes, books, kitchen supplies, the battered furniture she'd collected over years of thrift store visits, barely filled a corner of his massive penthouse. And watching her unpack had been like watching someone trying to transplant a small, hardy plant into soil that was too rich, too foreign, too everything. I don't know where half this stuff goes, she'd said the previous evening, standing in his walk-in closet that was bigger than her old bedroom. You have a section labeled Casual Friday Shirts. Who organizes their closet like that? Someone who has too many clothes and too much time, he'd offered. You have a tie rack, an actual rack for ties. There are at least 40 ties here. 37, actually. She'd stared at him. That doesn't make it better. But she was trying. Every morning she'd wake up in his bed, their bed, and look slightly surprised to be there, like her brain still hadn't fully accepted this as reality. She kept her old apartment for now, still paying rent she could barely afford because letting it go felt like burning a bridge she might need to cross back over. Ethan understood. Fear didn't disappear just because you made a commitment. Sometimes it got louder. 3 weeks after she moved in, Lena came home from the boutique looking shaken. Patricia fired me, she said, dropping her purse on the counter. Ethan looked up from his laptop. What? Why? Apparently I've been distracted lately. My personal life is affecting my work performance. Lena's voice dripped sarcasm on those last words. What she actually means is that she's sick of me dating you and getting attention she thinks I don't deserve. That's wrongful termination. We can fight it. With what? A lawyer I can't afford? Ethan, I'm a retail employee. I'm replaceable. Fighting it would cost more than I'd ever win back. She sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. And honestly, I hated that job anyway. Patricia was a nightmare, the hours were terrible, and I was getting paid barely above minimum wage to kiss rich people's asses all day. Then maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who just lost half their income. The words came out sharper than she probably meant them, and Ethan saw her wince immediately. I'm sorry, she said. That was unfair. No, you're right. I don't know what it's like to need a job that treats you like garbage just to pay rent. He closed his laptop. But you don't need to keep the data entry job either. You could take some time, figure out what you actually want to do. I can't just quit, Ethan. I have bills, my mom's medical expenses, Tommy's tuition. I could help with those. No. Lena, no. She stood up, agitated. We've talked about this. I'm not going to become the woman who lets her rich boyfriend pay for everything. That's not who I am. I'm not asking you to be someone else. I'm offering to help someone I love who's struggling. And what happens when we fight? When things get hard? Then I'm not just your girlfriend who's upset. I'm the woman living in your apartment, dependent on your money with no way to leave if I wanted to. She shook her head. I need to be able to take care of myself. That's not negotiable. Ethan recognized the fear beneath the stubbornness. He'd seen it before, in the way she still kept her apartment, still insisted on paying for things she could barely afford, still treated his money like it was contaminated. Okay, he said. No help with bills unless you ask for it, but at least let me help you find a job you don't hate. I know people. I could make some calls, and then everyone will say I only got hired because of who I'm dating. Does it matter why you get hired if you're good at the job? She looked at him like he'd suggested something obscene. Yes, Ethan, it matters. I've spent my entire life being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like I don't matter. I'm not going to build a career on your connections and spend the rest of my life wondering if I actually earned anything or if it was all just handed to me because of who I'm sleeping with. The conversation ended there, both of them frustrated and talking past each other, and Ethan realized that money, the thing he'd never had to worry about, was going to be the thing that broke them if they weren't careful. That night, Sophie asked why Lena seemed sad. She's just having a hard day, sweetheart, Ethan said, tucking her in. Because she lost her job? He should have known Sophie had overheard. The penthouse was big, but sound carried, and his daughter had a habit of appearing silently in doorways. Yeah, because of that? Is she going to have to leave? The fear in Sophie's voice broke his heart. No, Bug, she's not leaving. But if she doesn't have money, we'll figure it out. Adults always figure things out. Sophie didn't look convinced, and Ethan didn't blame her. He wasn't convinced either. The next morning, Lena was up before dawn, laptop open, applying to jobs with a determination that bordered on desperate. Ethan watched her from the bedroom doorway, this woman he loved wearing his old t-shirt and her own stubborn pride, fighting battles he couldn't help her win. She found a new job within a week, front desk at a dental office in Midtown. It paid slightly less than the boutique, but had better hours and a boss who seemed merely indifferent rather than actively hostile. She also picked up weekend shifts at a coffee shop near her mom's apartment in Queens, which meant she was working 6 days a week and coming home exhausted. This isn't sustainable, Ethan said one night when she got home at 11, dead on her feet. It's temporary, just until I save up enough to feel secure again. Lena, you live here. You don't need to. I do need to. You don't understand. And she was right. He didn't understand, couldn't understand, because he'd never spent nights lying awake doing math in his head, trying to figure out if he could afford both groceries and medicine. He'd never had to choose between heating and electricity. He'd never known the specific terror of being one paycheck away from homelessness. His privilege was a wall between them, invisible but solid, and he had no idea how to break through it. Things came to a head in early February when Lena's mother ended up in the hospital with a diabetic emergency. The bills started arriving almost immediately, thousands of dollars, even after insurance, the kind of numbers that would have been routine medical expenses for Ethan and were catastrophic for Lena. He found her at 3 a.m, sitting at the kitchen counter with bills spread around her, crying silently while trying to figure out payment plans. Lena, don't, she said without looking up. Whatever you're about to offer, just don't. I'm going to offer anyway. Let me pay these. No. Your mother needs care. You need sleep. You're working yourself to exhaustion trying to cover this, and it's not sustainable. It's my problem, Ethan. My family. My responsibility. You're my family now, too. That makes it my responsibility. She finally looked at him, eyes red and exhausted. If I let you pay for this, what's next? My rent? My brother's tuition? Every little crisis that comes up? At what point do I just become another expense in your budget? That's not fair. Isn't it? You don't understand what it's like to owe someone, to need them. It changes the whole relationship. Suddenly, I'm not your equal. I'm your charity case. I would never see you that way. But everyone else would, and eventually maybe you would too. She wiped her eyes roughly. I've watched what happens when women depend on men financially. My mom depended on my dad, and when he died, she had nothing. No skills, no savings, no way to take care of herself. I swore I'd never be that vulnerable. I'm not your father, and you're not your mother. How do you know? How do you know you won't wake up one day and resent me for needing you, for costing you money, for being a burden? Ethan pulled out the chair next to her and sat down. You want to know how I know? Because I've been on the other side of this. When Caroline got sick, the medical bills were astronomical. Experimental treatments, specialists, private care. I threw money at the problem like it could fix everything, and it couldn't. She died anyway, and all that money meant nothing. Lena's expression softened slightly. But you know what I learned? He continued. Money can't buy the things that actually matter. It can't buy time or health or love. It's just a tool. And right now, I have a tool that can help someone I love keep her mother alive and out of pain. Why wouldn't I use it? Because I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me help carry some of the weight you've been carrying alone for too long. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the bills. What if we don't work out? What if 6 months from now we realize this was a mistake and then I owe you? You don't owe me anything. Not now, not ever. Whether we're together for 6 months or 60 years, that doesn't change. He took her hand. I love you. Your mother's health crisis doesn't come with a relationship contract. Tears spilled down her cheeks again. I hate this. I hate needing help. I hate not being able to fix my own problems. I know, but maybe that's something we both need to work on. You need to learn to accept help. And I need to learn to offer it without making you feel small. She looked at their joined hands, and Ethan could see the war happening behind her eyes. Pride versus pragmatism. Independence versus exhaustion. Okay, she said finally, so quietly he almost missed it. You can help with the medical bills, but I'm paying you back. Eventually, even if it takes years. Deal. Though I'm not holding you to that. I'm holding me to it. He paid off her mother's medical bills the next day. A phone call and a wire transfer that took less time than Lena had spent agonizing over payment plans. And watching her relief was worth every penny, even though she still looked uncomfortable accepting it. Thank you, she said that night. I mean it. I know I'm difficult about this stuff, but thank you. You're not difficult. You're proud. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like the same thing. Pride is wanting to stand on your own. Difficult is refusing help you need out of spite. You're the former, not the latter. She smiled slightly. You always know what to say. Not always, but I'm learning. Something shifted after that. Not immediately, and not completely. Lena still insisted on working her jobs, still kept her apartment, still maintained the careful independence she'd built her entire adult life. But she started letting Ethan in more, letting him see the scared parts, the struggling parts, the pieces she'd been hiding because she thought they made her weak. And in return, Ethan started showing her his own struggles, the crushing pressure of the company, the fear that he was failing Sophie by working too much, the guilt that still haunted him about Caroline's death, the irrational belief that if he'd just done something different, tried harder, found better doctors, she might still be alive. You know that's not how cancer works, right? Lena said one night when he finally voiced these thoughts. Logically, yes. Emotionally, I still feel like I failed her. You didn't fail her, you loved her. You tried everything. Sometimes people die anyway, and it's not anyone's fault. I wish I believed that. You will, eventually. She curled closer to him. Grief doesn't follow logic, it just exists, and you work through it the best you can. They were learning each other's damage, he realized. The broken pieces that everyone had but most people kept hidden. And instead of running from it, they were choosing to stay and see if two imperfect people could build something whole. In March, something unexpected happened. Lena came home from the dental office looking thoughtful rather than exhausted. My boss offered me a promotion, she said. Ethan looked up from where he was helping Sophie build an elaborate dinosaur habitat. That's great. What kind of promotion? Office manager. It's a real salary, benefits, normal hours. She said I'm organized and good with people, and she needs someone she can trust to actually run things while she focuses on patients. Lena, that's amazing. Are you taking it? I don't know. It means quitting the coffee shop, which means less total income, even though the base salary is better. And I'm not sure I'm qualified. I mean, I've never managed anything before. You manage 2 jobs, your mother's care and my daughter's dinosaur obsession. I think you can handle a dental office. Sophie looked up. You should take it, Lena. Then you wouldn't be so tired all the time. Out of the mouths of babes. Lena laughed, but Ethan could see her actually considering it. What if I'm bad at it? She asked. Then you'll learn. That's what jobs are, places where you learn things. He stood, crossing to her. You're smart and capable, and you work harder than anyone I know. You'll be great at this. You're biased, completely, but also right. She took the promotion, and within 2 months proved that Ethan's bias was justified. Her boss started relying on her for everything. The office ran smoother, and Lena came home energized instead of drained for the first time since Ethan had known her. I actually like my job, she said one evening, sounding surprised. Like, genuinely enjoy going to work. Is this what it's supposed to feel like? For most people, yeah. Well, it's weird. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe there is no other shoe. Maybe things are just actually going well. She looked at him skeptically. In my experience, when things are going well, that's when life decides to remind you who's really in charge. She wasn't wrong. 2 weeks later, the reminder arrived. Ethan was in his office when Jennifer knocked with a familiar expression, the one that meant something bad was happening. Turn on the news, she said. He did, and saw his own face staring back at him from a financial news channel. The headline read, Rowe Enterprises CEO's relationship raises questions about judgment. His stomach dropped. The segment was a hatchet job, thinly veiled as objective reporting. They showed photos of him and Lena at the gala, emphasized her humble background, questioned whether a relationship with someone so far outside the business world might be affecting his decision-making. They even mentioned the Meridian project delays, implying without directly stating that his personal life was distracting him from professional responsibilities. It was garbage, all of it, but it was also public, widely watched garbage that would have consequences. His phone started ringing immediately. Board members, investors, people who'd seen the segment and wanted to know if it was true, if he was compromised, if they needed to worry about the company's direction. He spent the afternoon managing the fallout, reassuring people that his personal life had zero impact on his professional judgment, that the Meridian delays were being handled and had nothing to do with Lena. By the time he got home that evening, he was exhausted and angry and dreading the conversation he knew was coming. Lena was sitting on the couch, her laptop open, clearly having seen the same news segment. So, she said without preamble, I'm a liability now. You're not a liability. The news seems to disagree. The news is looking for drama. This will blow over in a week. Will it? She closed her laptop. Or is this just the beginning? Every time we go out, every time someone sees us together, they're going to question it. Question us. Question whether you're making good decisions or just thinking with your... Lena, stop. I'm serious, Ethan. I'm damaging your reputation, your company. Maybe we need to... Don't. He crossed to her, taking her hands. Don't finish that sentence. We're not breaking up because some talking heads on TV decided to make us their story of the day. But what if they're right? What if I am a distraction? Then I'll be distracted. I don't care. Your board cares. Your investors care. And I care about you, about us, about Sophie having someone she loves in her life. That matters more than what some board members think about my dating choices. Lena looked at him with tears in her eyes. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've built. You won't be. But even if you were, even if choosing you cost me the company tomorrow, I'd still choose you, every time. That's insane. Maybe. But it's true. She started crying then, really crying, and Ethan held her while she let out all the fear and stress and insecurity she'd been carrying. I don't know how to do this, she said against his chest. How to be with someone who lives in a completely different world. How to handle people judging us constantly. How to be enough when I'm so obviously not. You are enough. You've always been enough. Then why doesn't it feel like it? He didn't have a good answer for that. All he could do was hold her and hope it was enough. The news cycle moved on, like he'd predicted. Within a week, there was some other scandal to occupy the financial press's attention. But the damage lingered. Whispers at board meetings, knowing looks from investors, the subtle implication that Ethan's judgment was compromised. And through it all, Lena carried the weight of believing she was the problem. It came to a head in late April at Sophie's school during a parent-teacher conference that Lena had offered to attend with Ethan. Sophie's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, warm and competent and generally wonderful, went through the usual updates. Sophie was doing well academically, struggling slightly with reading comprehension, but improving, thriving in art class. Then, as they were wrapping up, she added, "And I have to say, Sophie seems so much happier lately. She talks about Lena all the time. It's clear she's really benefited from having that additional support at home." It was meant as a compliment, but the woman standing behind them in line for her own conference, a mother Ethan vaguely recognized from school events, decided to share her thoughts. "Well, I think it's concerning," she said loudly enough for everyone in the hallway to hear. "A child getting attached to her father's girlfriend when they're not even married. What happens when it doesn't work out? Poor Sophie will be devastated. Again." The hallway went quiet. Ethan felt Lena stiffen beside him. "Excuse me?" he said, his voice dangerously calm. The woman had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable, but doubled down anyway. "I'm just saying, children need stability, not a revolving door of relationships." "Lena isn't a revolving door. She's family." "Is she? Because I haven't heard anything about an engagement. For all we know, this is just a phase. Rich men dating inappropriate women they'll never actually marry. It's a tale as old as time." Ethan was about to respond, something cutting and probably inappropriate for a school hallway, when Lena squeezed his hand. "Don't," she said quietly. "She's not worth it." But the woman's words had landed exactly where they were meant to. All the way home, Lena was quiet, and Ethan knew she was replaying that conversation, letting it confirm all her worst fears. That night, after Sophie went to bed, Lena said the thing Ethan had been dreading. "Maybe we should get married." He looked up from his laptop. "What?" "That's what everyone's waiting for, right? Some grand gesture that proves this is real, that I'm not just some temporary distraction." She was pacing now, agitated. "If we were engaged, people would stop questioning it. Sophie would feel more secure. Your board would back off." "Lena, and it makes sense, doesn't it? We love each other. We're living together. Sophie's already calling me her family. Why not make it official?" "Because you're suggesting it for all the wrong reasons." She stopped pacing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm not proposing to you because some judgmental mother at school questioned our relationship. I'm not asking you to marry me to make my board feel better or to prove something to people who don't matter." He stood, crossing to her. "When I ask you to marry me, and I will ask you, it's going to be because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Not because we're trying to fix problems or silence critics." Tears filled her eyes again. "So you do want to marry me?" "Of course I want to marry you. I've wanted to marry you since you sat on the floor with Sophie talking about ankylosaurs, and I realized I'd found something I didn't know I was looking for." "Then why haven't you asked?" "Because I was waiting for the right moment, when we weren't fighting about money or dealing with news coverage or being attacked by school parents, when it could just be about us." "When is it ever just about us, Ethan? There's always something, always someone questioning whether I belong in your world. Maybe there's never going to be a perfect moment." She was right. He'd been waiting for some idealized scenario, candlelight, romantic setting, the perfect words. But real life wasn't like that. Real life was messy and complicated and full of school parents who said terrible things. "Wait here," he said. "What? Ethan?" "Just wait. 2 minutes." He went to his office, unlocked the safe where he kept important documents, and pulled out the small box he'd been carrying around for 3 weeks. He'd bought the ring on impulse after watching Lena teach Sophie how to braid her hair, both of them laughing at their failed attempts, completely unself-conscious and beautiful. When he returned to the living room, Lena was still standing where he'd left her, looking confused and slightly worried. He got down on one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth. "This isn't how I planned this," he said. "I was going to take you back to that cafe where we had our first real conversation. Or maybe to DiNardo's, since that's where you first told me you loved me. somewhere meaningful and romantic and perfect. Ethan, but you're right. There's never going to be a perfect moment. There's just life, messy and complicated and full of people who don't understand us. And I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to spend another day not being able to call you my fiancée, my wife, my partner in all of this. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, elegant but not ostentatious, because he knew Lena would hate anything too flashy. Lena Hart, you drive me crazy. You argue with me about accepting help. You insist on working jobs you hate to prove you're independent. You keep an apartment you can't afford because you're terrified of being vulnerable. And I love all of it. I love you. Your stubbornness, your pride, your ridiculous conviction that you're somehow not good enough when you're the best person I know. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. You make Sophie happier than I've seen her in years. You make me want to be a better person. You see past all the money and the reputation and the polished image to the lonely, scared guy underneath who just wants to do right by the people he loves. He took a breath. So will you marry me? Not because it'll make the gossip stop, or because some school parent thinks you should, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it? Yes, she said, the word coming out choked and watery. Yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, thank God. And then she was pulling him to his feet and kissing him and crying and laughing all at once. I can't believe you just proposed in sweatpants, she said when they finally broke apart. You're wearing my old NYU t-shirt. I think we're even. Fair point. She looked at the ring on her finger, turning it to catch the light. It's beautiful and not ridiculously expensive, right? Because if this costs more than... Lena, we're engaged. Can you please just enjoy the moment without worrying about the price tag? Sorry. Old habits. She wiped her eyes. We're getting married. We're getting married. Sophie's going to lose her mind. In the best way. They told Sophie the next morning over breakfast. Her shriek of joy was loud enough that Ethan briefly worried about complaints from neighbors 3 floors down. Does this mean Lena's going to be my mom? Sophie asked, bouncing in her chair. Ethan and Lena exchanged glances. They'd talked about this, how to handle the delicate navigation of Lena's role in Sophie's life. I can't replace your mom, Lena said gently. Nobody can. But I can be someone who loves you and takes care of you and is always going to be here for you, if that's okay. Sophie thought about it with her characteristic seriousness. Can I call you Mom if I want to? Lena's eyes filled with tears. If you want to, yes. Okay? I want to. Sophie took a bite of her cereal, completely matter-of-fact. When's the wedding? Can I wear a princess dress? Can we have dinosaur decorations? The wedding planning became Sophie's new obsession. She had opinions about everything. Flowers, purple and green, obviously. Cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, non-negotiable. Music, something with drums. And whether the ceremony should include educational facts about paleontology. Ethan gently vetoed that one. Lena wanted something small and simple. Ethan wanted whatever made her happy. They compromised on a mid-sized ceremony in early June. Intimate enough to feel personal, large enough to include the people who mattered. The guest list became its own negotiation. Ethan's world required certain invitations, board members, major investors, business partners who'd be offended not to receive one. Lena's world was smaller but no less important. Her mother, her brother, Rosa from DiNardo's, co-workers from the dental office, the handful of friends who'd stuck with her through years of struggle. This is going to look ridiculous, Lena said one night, reviewing the seating chart. Half the room in designer suits, the other half in their best Target outfits. Good. Maybe it'll remind everyone that what matters is the people, not their clothes. You're an optimist. I'm marrying you. Of course I'm an optimist. The wedding arrived faster than either of them expected. Suddenly, it was June, and Ethan was standing in a room at the venue adjusting his tie for the 15th time, while Daniel tried to calm his nerves. You look like you're about to pass out, Daniel observed. I'm not nervous about marrying her. I'm nervous about everything else. The ceremony, the reception, all those people watching and judging. Yo, bam, mboshimamam. Ethan, nobody's judging. They're celebrating. And if they are judging, who cares? You're marrying the woman you love. That's all that matters. He was right. Ethan knew he was right. But years of living under scrutiny were hard to shake. Then the music started, and Sophie came down the aisle in her purple dress, throwing flower petals with the seriousness of someone performing surgery, and Ethan felt himself relax slightly. And then Lena appeared. She wore a simple dress, cream-colored, elegant, without being ostentatious, exactly right for who she was. Her hair was down in soft curls, her makeup minimal, her smile nervous and genuine and absolutely radiant. She was the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever seen. She walked down the aisle alone. Her father was gone, her brother offering, but Lena choosing to make the walk herself. And when she reached him, she whispered, "Hi." "Hi yourself." "I'm terrified." "Me too." "Good. At least we're doing this together." The ceremony was short and personal. No religious elements, just carefully chosen words about love and commitment and choosing each other every day, even when it was hard. Sophie stood between them holding both their hands, and when the officiant asked if anyone objected, she said loudly, "If anyone objects, they have to fight me first." The audience laughed, the tension broke, and suddenly it was just them, Ethan and Lena and Sophie, making promises to each other while everyone else faded into background noise. "I do," Lena said when it was her turn. "I do," Ethan echoed, and just like that, they were married. The reception was exactly the mix Lena had predicted. Designer suits and Target dresses, champagne and beer, catered fancy food and Donardo's lasagna that Rosa had insisted on providing. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. Ethan danced with his new wife while Sophie danced circles around them, and he watched their two worlds collide in ways that were messy and imperfect and absolutely right. Robert approached during a quiet moment, looking uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology," he said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "For?" "For questioning your judgment, for suggesting Lena was a distraction. I was wrong. She makes you better, sharper at work, happier at home. I should have seen that earlier. She does make me better. Thanks for noticing. For what it's worth, she's good for Sophie, too. That kid's a different person than she was a year ago." Ethan looked across the room where Lena was talking to his aunt, Sophie hanging off her arm, both of them laughing at something. "Yeah, she is." The evening wound down eventually. Guests left, carrying party favors Sophie had insisted include dinosaur stickers. The venue staff started cleaning up, and Ethan found himself alone with his wife, on the terrace overlooking the city. "We did it," Lena said, leaning against the railing. "We did. I kept waiting for something to go wrong, for someone to object or for me to trip walking down the aisle or for the universe to remind me that people like me don't get happy endings. And nothing went wrong. It was perfect, messy and chaotic, and way more people than I wanted, but perfect." She turned to look at him. "I'm your wife." "You are. That's terrifying." "Also thrilling?" "Also thrilling," she admitted. She looked down at her ring. She'd insisted on a simple band to match the engagement ring, nothing elaborate. "A year ago, I was working 2 jobs I hated, living in an apartment with broken heat, convinced I'd spend the rest of my life alone just trying to survive. And now? Now I'm married to a billionaire, living in a penthouse, stepmother to an amazing kid who thinks dinosaurs should be involved in all major life events." She shook her head. "It's absurd. My life is absurd." "Good absurd or bad absurd?" "The best kind of absurd." She took his hand. "I was so scared at the beginning. Scared I wasn't good enough. Scared I didn't belong. Scared you'd wake up one day and realize you'd made a mistake. And now? Now I'm still scared sometimes. But I also know that you see me, really see me, and you chose me anyway. Not despite where I came from, but including it. All the messy, complicated, imperfect parts." Ethan pulled her close. "You know what I learned from all this?" "What?" "That the person who can change your life isn't always some perfect match from your own world. Sometimes it's the quiet soul from your past who sees through all your carefully constructed walls and reminds you what actually matters." "Is that your way of saying you're glad you didn't cancel that first dinner?" "I'm saying I almost missed the most important thing in my life because I was too tired and too convinced nothing would change. And if I had canceled, if I'd just given in to exhaustion and stayed home that night, none of this would exist." Lena was quiet for a moment. "Do you think we were lucky? Or do you think we would have found each other eventually?" "I think we were lucky that we both said yes to something we didn't want. Lucky that we stayed when we could have left. Lucky that we kept choosing each other even when it was hard. He kissed her forehead. But I also think that if you're meant to find someone, you find them. Maybe not that night, maybe not that way, but eventually. That's very romantic for someone who claims to be practical. You make me romantic. It's annoying. She laughed, and the sound carried across the terrace into the night. Inside, they could hear Sophie talking to one of the catering staff about Cretaceous period climate change. Their daughter, because she was theirs now, legally and emotionally, completely in her element, completely herself. Thank you, Lena said quietly. For what? For seeing me, for loving me, for giving me a family when I'd convinced myself I didn't deserve one. She wiped her eyes. For being stubborn enough not to give up even when I was being impossible. You weren't impossible. You were scared. There's a difference. Still. Thank you. They went back inside to collect Sophie, who was starting to fade, despite her protest that she wasn't tired at all. Ethan carried her to the car while she sleepily explained something about pterodactyl wing structure to Lena. At home, their home, they tucked Sophie into bed together. Best day ever, Sophie mumbled, already half asleep. Yeah, Bug, it was, Lena agreed, kissing her forehead. Alone in their bedroom, Ethan and Lena changed out of their wedding clothes and into comfortable pajamas, both too keyed up to sleep. So this is it, Lena said, curling up against him. The rest of our lives starts now. Scared, terrified, but also excited. Is that normal? I think that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. They lay in comfortable silence, and Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first accidental dinner to this moment, married and building a life together despite every reason it shouldn't work. The world outside would keep judging, keep questioning, keep waiting for them to fail in ways that confirmed all their assumptions about class and money and who belonged with whom. But in here, in the quiet of their bedroom with his wife in his arms and his daughter sleeping down the hall, none of that mattered. They'd built something real, something messy and imperfect and absolutely worth fighting for. And Ethan finally understood what he'd been searching for all those years. Not perfection, not someone who fit neatly into his world, but a partner who challenged him, who saw his flaws and loved him anyway, who reminded him that the best things in life were often the ones you almost missed. I love you, he said into the darkness. I love you too, Lena replied, already half asleep. Even when you're being a stubborn billionaire who thinks he can fix everything. And I love you even when you're being a stubborn woman who won't let me fix anything. She smiled against his chest. We're quite a pair. The best pair. Outside, the city continued its endless motion, people living their lives, chasing their dreams, sometimes finding what they were looking for in the most unexpected places. And inside, Ethan Rowe held his wife close and silently thanked whatever force had made him leave his apartment that rainy Friday evening instead of canceling. Because the person who'd been waiting for him all along, the one who'd make everything make sense, had been right there. He just needed to finally see her,